Welcome back to the Comics Aficionados. I almost said that wrong. Live here on Think Critical YouTube. We've been arguing in the green room because Aaron has bad takes on wrestling and Josh is apparently a wrestling snob. But we're going to talk about comic books today. And we've got a big interview from Dan Buckley, president of Marvel, where he basically looks like they don't have a lot of plans for making things better. We've got Blood Hunt going on. We've got more X-Men news. We've got DC sales apparently evaporating, not only in comic books, but in graphic novels and all that wonderful stuff. And returning to the channel with a man's beard. My goodness, Eric Breen, I would normally call you the voice of the voiceless and the man so cool they call you the Breen. I want to call you a grizzly man. I love it.
I'm just trying to look more like my mentor, Aaron.
You're gonna shave the head?
See, I've been reducing my beard, and here you came in strong.
Well, it's taken me 62 years to do this. So,
looking good. You and Chris Gore both sporting beards this week. It's crazy.
Breen almost looks like the Jack Black of Thinking Critical.
I figured another couple hours of arguing with Aaron, it might just fall out.
Let's go full gray.
Aaron's got the worst takes on wrestling.
I got the best takes on wrestling.
He's a WWE homer.
WWE?
That's nothing to do with WWE. It has to do with the fact that arena empty wrestling sucks, and Tony Khan owes me $80 for that shit video game.
Do you have a shirt that says "Yeet" on it? That's the question.
No, I don't. You know what? I'm not. If you want to get into it, I'm not into Usos singles run at all.
Oh, well, there you go.
Well,
how you been, Breen?
I heard somebody point out that someone was saying that some arena was doing the Uso chant or something like that, and that somehow makes him more popular than I don't know who they were trying to make fun of. But I remember I said, "Yeah, I remember when a Michigan State football game they all did the yes chant. What's that got to do with anything?" Anyway, I've been doing all right, Wes.
You still doing geeky puppets? You still doing the read-alongs? What's going on with the Breen?
We are still doing the readings on Fridays and Sundays.
Very nice.
We had a fossil reunion this week on Wednesday, which was kind of cool.
It's a lot of fun. And you're a big Reds fan, and you guys are just shitting the entire bed there.
Oh, you know what? I think someone just made a base running mistake now, and they're not even playing.
There you go. So it's been rough on you. You had that 1 year.
Yeah, they
came back.
It looks like the Royals are going to have another run, before we do again. And
all right, are you reading Blood Hunt? That's a big question.
No.
Oh, well,
should I be?
No, probably not. That was a lot of vampire books in 1 week. Lots to take in. We've also got Jim here now. Jim, last time we talked to you.
Yeah.
You had told your wife to suck it up when she had necrosis in her hand. Did she lose it?
No, but she did have an overnight stay at the hospital and may have become like a mummy and a black sorceress, but I'm not sure. But yeah, she did have an overnight stay at the hospital. They wanted to make sure it was fine. She's fine now. She's all right? Yeah. She doesn't have that. She didn't lose a hand, but I think she wants to lose a husband. So we'll see. We'll see. But that's
she blames you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It always is. I think she thinks I bit her. It's possible. But yeah. So
it kind of is your fault because you're the one that guilted her into doing yard work with her. And then you're the one that when you saw
inspired to do the lawn work with me. I actually didn't want her to. And the way that she was wielding that weed whacker, there was trouble. It looked like there could have been, some crazy surgeries going on. But it's
going to take the paint off your car.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're supposed to mow the lawn after this too, and I might tell her that she can't. So
she almost lost a hand last time, Jim.
Yeah.
Take one off.
Yeah, I'll tell her. I'd rather do it myself anyway. She wasn't very good at it, so she probably
don't
hears
say that aloud. You're
gonna get insult to injury.
Yeah,
man.
There you go. There, insult to injury, but we'll figure it out. But I'm fine. I actually rolled out of bed. I'm ready to go.
You didn't almost die this week. It was
no. I'm pretty good. I think that it's just anybody around me. Somebody needs to be in that sphere, and it hasn't been me in a while, so it's good.
Very nice. We've also got Josh McDonald returning 2 weeks in a row.
2 weeks in a row.
Very nice. How's comic books going for you?
All right.
That's it.
No, yeah, it was all right. Comics are fine, man. Comics are good. The way I'm approaching comics are a little different. So reading a lot of number ones to get a feel for what's out there, and just mainly reading indies right now. So,
Did you read The Boy Wonder #1?
I picked it up, but I have not read it yet. So this week's been
we can't have that conversation.
I know. I'm sorry. This week's been like ape shit crazy, but
I'm very conflicted about the book. I would like Black Label, and when you read it, you're going, "Why is this Black Label? This is a book for little kids." It's kind of weird, but otherwise the story's fine.
Nice.
So, what is Black Label, Josh? Can you explain that to me?
I was about to say I don't even think DC knows what Black Label is anymore. They didn't know what it was when they were launching Black Label, because it went through like 3 different iterations before it launched, and then they landed on something, and then like 3 to 6 months into it launching, it turned into something else. So Black
I
Label
thought it settled on being like the adults title, the like their Max line or something.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of keeps shifting. So I think it's whatever they decide is a good story that isn't going to work in continuity. It's Black Label.
For a while, they were like, it's going to be the very best creators in the industry, and Kelly Sue DeConnick.
Yeah.
And John Ridley.
Oh, yeah.
They're relaunching Elseworlds, Doc. It's not even Elseworlds. They're relaunching that this year.
I know. And doesn't seem to have exists.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
I think we're
all just confusing to me.
Yeah. I think we're all just realizing DC is just the short bus, and, we've unfortunately been along for the ride not realizing it.
Well, DC has such great characters. Why have they never been able to get their shit together for any lengthy period of time?
But when they did, it didn't resonate sales wise. They, post crisis for 20 years, they were consistently as good, if not better, than Marvel. They could never really make a dent in the sales. They passed them for a couple minutes when they changed everything in New 52, which objectively, maybe had some cool titles, but the main stuff wasn't as good as what they had been doing, at least, if you go back to the late 80s through the 90s. But it's got to be frustrating at some point. It had to be frustrating for them when they can knock it out of the park story wise, and Marvel just has to spell their name right.
Yeah,
don't even have to do that half the time. There you go. We got Aaron Sparrow. How you doing, Sparrow?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay. It's fine.
So you've made it your life's work to just shit on AEW now?
No. I've made it my life's work to shit on a lot of things.
Yeah, but it feels like you're piling on AEW in Wrestling Genius Tony Khan.
Oh, Wrestling Genius Tony Khan. Money Mark Tony Khan. Little silver spoon baby boy.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
Look, I mean, hey, I would love it if we all, every one of us and everybody in the chat, I would love it if we all had a super rich daddy and he could buy us, a company that we could run into the ground. But, because it doesn't matter if we make money or not, because there's just a constant flow of money. I would love it if we were all that fortunate, but sadly we're not. And some of us have to really work for a living.
There you go. How's Kneel Before Doomface coming? Everyone loves the picture. Whenever we do a video, they go, "What's the art behind Aaron?" I go, "Well, that's Kneel Before Doomface."
And how long have I been on the channel? And people still, this is why it's so hard to market things.
Well, people are finding the channel and the videos for the first time, and they see that, and they are always drawn to it, Aaron.
No, I mean, it's getting a really good response. Everything that I'm putting out, it seems to be building. I've got new art that I'm going to be showing off this week. I actually hope to have something in this morning that I was going to debut on the channel, but the artist did not finish it in time. Yeah, it's really gaining momentum. The more that Doomface's design is kind of refined by different artists, the more popular it gets, based off a great initial design from our friend Tim Lim over, doing Common America with Tim Pellegrini. He delivered Mark Pellegrini. Yeah, I'm combining them. I'm Brangelina-ing Tim and Mark. He did a great initial design, and then Renzo, and then of course Kenneth came in and knocked it out. And just the character designs on this, between the ones Renzo's done, Tim, Marcelo Ferreira, everybody who's worked on the book with me has just been bringing their A game. So I've got to make sure that this story is fun and funny, and the satire is on point, and yeah, it's like I'm hoping for a really good campaign when we launch, which I think we're going to do at the end of June.
So Mark Russell is also a famed satirist in comic books. Do you feel like you're at the Mark Russell level yet?
Oh, I can't wait to blow him out of the water.
Wow.
I think that my tweets are better than anything he's ever written in comic book form.
Even Snagglepuss? The perfect
Even
character
Snagglepuss.
for Mark Russell?
Even Snagglepuss.
Everybody's looking forward to it, Aaron, and I do appreciate that. Finally, we do have Doc. Doc and I just talked about a really big interview with Tom Brevoort on Adventures of Cortez. That was a good one, Doc.
It was a fun conversation. And every time Tom opens his mouth, it kind of further cements that we were pretty much able to predict almost everything about what he's doing on X-Men right here on this channel, between our videos and on Patreon and Comics Aficionados every week.
Absolutely. So now we all know that you're the world's biggest planetary fan, and they've announced that X-Force is basically going to be planetary, but for X-Men. Does that make you more excited?
No, because when he started describing this, he didn't describe planetary. He described Jonathan Hickman's Avengers. And with having this machine and needing this rotating team in order to deal with this thing that's coming that they are predicting with pre-crime, none of this shit reminds me of planetary, because planetary was digging into the past and finding out why it affects the present. This is predicting the future. I'm sorry, Tom, but the past and the future are not the same thing. So when Tom starts talking about this and describing it as planetary, I go, okay, first of all, it's Jeff Thorne. The guy has never written anything worth a damn in his life. He is as far from Warren Ellis caliber talent as humanly possible. And while Marcus Toe is a perfectly serviceable Stuart Immonen clone, he is nowhere approaching John Cassaday. He might be present day John Cassaday, but not planetary or astonishing X-Men John Cassaday. And so, no, nothing about this screams planetary. Everything about this seems lukewarm, reheated leftovers of moldy Jonathan Hickman story from Avengers 12 years ago.
You're going to make me defend Mr. Brevoort here, Doc. You buy into string theory. Therefore, you believe that the past and the future are the same thing. They're stringy.
I'm saying that, I buy into the idea that the universe, I'm more of a bubble universe person, but that doesn't really affect time. That means time still progresses and the bubbles keep growing as time passes and choices are made. So not exactly
the real
theory.
multiverse. You were defending string theory. I thought you bought
I'm
into
saying
that shit.
I'm saying it's a reasonable supposition based on how I understand it, but I don't know the science, and it's an interesting theory.
All
That's
right.
as far
Before we
as
go
I
down
go.
this too far and really bore people down, I guess we should start getting into this. We do have some super chats. Caleb says it's not a good look when you have a former hooker at Kotaku and recently a Warhammer artist threatening families.
Wait, who's the hooker?
Alyssa Merced or whatever her name is.
Oh, that
we have a current hooker in comics.
Yeah, T. Franklin.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when she's tweeting about how she had to interrupt her writing stream to go sext with her clients. First of all, we call those Johns. We don't call them clients. Yeah. Second of all, like, can you? This person is regularly employed by Marvel, DC. Wrote a My Little Pony story for children for IDW. It's unbelievable. Like, can you imagine going into a pitch meeting and you're standing there, with a guy, and the guy, the editor that's talking to you assumes it's your manager, but then you interrupt the meeting halfway through to give that guy a hand, Joe? I mean, because he's just one of your clients. Hang on, I got to interrupt this meeting so that I can take care of one of my clients. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable how degenerate the comic book industry has become.
My question
We are
is,
not going any further down this road, Doc.
I just wanted to know if the wheelchair is involved.
He's like
I don't-
Aaron already
why
went
I'm-
right to here, and Doc is about to
Doc,
go woo right
That's
past.
why we're not going to go any further
Nah,
down this
Doc.
road. Damn it, Callum. You try to derail us already. You know these guys can't not jump in on that. Lade Craver. Aaron, main event Jay is too yeet. He's awesome. However, the final countdown is on X-Men 97. Almost over. Soon, Acolyte for you and Wes.
Brutal. Now, like, I'll tell you what, man, you look at the pay-per-view from France and you would think that Jay was the biggest star on the planet. Like that entry, they were so excited, and that entrance was insane. That crowd was pumped. I think
Another reason to hate the French, huh?
cheese-eating surrender monkeys. No, but you know what? They were into it. It was weird though, because they cheer so different. Like their energy is so different from like an American audience. And the way that like we cheer, and when you watch like wrestling in Japan, and they clap politely, it's just such a weird, different energy. And I'd be interested to hear like wrestlers talk about how you deal with that in the ring. Like, how do you feed off of that when it's such a different experience?
No, I just yell obscenities whenever I get to pro wrestling or even UFC. That fucking bum lost my money. Are you ready for the Acolyte? I'm not ready, Aaron.
I don't know. I mean, if we're gonna do it, I mean, I don't know if I'm properly braced for it. I was already like depressed on Twitter this week talking about how I'm really thinking of just selling off every like Star Wars thing that I own, except maybe my expanded universe novels, just but like and my comics, but like everything else.
Even your
like,
dolls?
My action figures, yes. Yeah, even the action figures. I'm like, why do I have this? I have no connection to this anymore. Like, I don't even have my childhood connection to it really anymore. And I've got like all the vintage stuff. I got all the hard to find play sets. I got all that stuff. I've got the, like I have the cardboard stuff that you would buy at Sears, like the Sandcrawler, Land of the Jawas play set. I've got the cardboard cantina, all that stuff in just really nice condition. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why am I
if you
struggling?
Put that shit on eBay, you wouldn't have it long.
No, I wouldn't. But also it's like, it's so depreciated right now. A lot of the stuff. I mean, the vintage stuff is still good, but
you know what Star Wars needs?
More Tony Khan. Yeah. Wrestling genius Tony Khan.
What if Mara Jade fought Arden Lynn? They're not even in the same time period. Don't worry about it.
My dad paid good money for this brand. For the doing the things to make it good. Gallup, not just comics, but that Disney investors call says Iger is either high or demented in Feige underdog. I think he's failing.
Oh, that statement about I'm glad to be the underdog again. No, you're not. No, you're not. And if you were glad to be the underdog again, if you're glad to have lost like $1 billion over the last year, 2 years for investors, then you need to go. You should be outraged that this is the position that Marvel is in. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear, you know what? I'm pissed off that we're in this position and we're going to fight our way back. We're going to give you what you want. That's what you want to hear. You don't want to hear, I'm glad to be the underdog. That failing's been great.
You know what I would want to hear? LeBron James claim he's the underdog. It's like, you're the highest paid professional athlete in American history. Disney is $1 billion corporation. You own Star Wars, Marvel, Disney princesses. You own everything. You're not the underdog. You're just the asshole.
Yeah, I don't want to hear LeBron at all.
You don't like his hairline. It offends you?
No, I don't like LeBron. I don't like I don't like a guy who is making millions and millions of dollars and has every privilege in the world afforded to him because he lives in the United States of America and he plays a game telling me about how bad he has it, how oppressed he is. Get out of here with that.
I don't know. I haven't been reading that stuff, but
it's been a while.
I don't read much anymore.
You're good. It's good. Stay away from the things celebrities say.
And he says, I'm starting to wonder if Bo DeMaio was fired because he wants stuff to succeed and Feige wanted 97 to fail.
I mean, he was fired for reasons, but
I'm fairly certain it was because he had an OnlyFans and there's links to it on the same area that had links to X-Men 97 Disney kids material.
Yeah. But wasn't sexting to people or giving handy jokes, as Aaron said.
How is that any different than what most of the Disney employees are out there promoting?
Exactly.
You got people talking about how we're trying to inject queerness into all of your kids' programming. Wherever we can.
Yeah, but at least
and
their
then
dog's not out.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's the line. Is
Right.
your dong out while you're doing
All
it?
right.
Is that confirmed that
Yeah.
was what was going on?
Hey, look, we covered this on my show.
All right, Josh,
the
confirm it.
night he was fired. I have pictures sent to me from a friend.
Oh, that's
that
right.
works
You
in
did say that.
Yep. So I just want to say I was talking about why he was fired before anyone else ever did, and receipts are there. So just go.
There we go. Nerd says, I think DC's issue is their characters. DC has a legion of aspirational heroes where Marvel has no such clean heroes, and with society's constant tilt to the darker and darker, Marvel resonates more. There is a groundedness to them, I guess, Eric, that makes them a little bit more relatable, where DC's heroes are more like gods, and certainly the Marvel heroes are typically a little bit more fallible outside of maybe a Captain America.
Well, that's what they did, though. That's what the Crisis did, was to depower all of these characters that I said that were just ridiculously overpowered because they were written for little kids. But even grounded, the next 20 years or so, they couldn't do anything. They couldn't dent Marvel's sales, and eventually they couldn't help themselves. They undid all of it, and now they're all a bunch of gods walking, and even their non-powered character can throw a pair of underwear on his face and survive re-entry. There you go.
That wasn't a great
listen.
moment, was it?
Listen, if you want fallible heroes, just wait. Tom King will get to your favorite DC hero, and then they'll be the worst thing you've ever read.
Yeah, but not in the way we like, though. I don't think.
Well, you don't get the things that you like, Breen. Haven't you learned that yet?
I've been in this for
F
50
you,
years.
that's why.
I'm well aware.
I've always thought the DC heroes were better, but obviously I'm in the minority.
I mean, I love both companies, but I will go with you on that. I think that I prefer the aspirational heroes like a Superman, like a Captain America. I'm less interested. I mean, I like your gritty heroes like anybody else. I like your Wolverines. I like your Daredevils. I like that stuff. But, I find that I gravitate, especially as the world gets darker, I gravitate towards the heroes that are more aspirational. And like we often say on this channel, I'm less interested in superheroes that are more like us. And I'm interested in us being more like superheroes.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't make sense at all. I said the whole, bring the heroes to our level instead of try to rise to theirs. That's in a hobby that I said, when we have guys that can punch planets. Yeah, I don't need to see myself in a superhero.
I think it's that Marvel's always been ahead of the curve. Like, they're the ones that innovate, and DC are always catching up. So you're never truly unique if you're just kind of replaying or trying to be more like your competitor.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be that way. You just need some leadership at DC. But unfortunately, we've got Jim Lee fiddling his Ron Burns.
I was going to say, I think after this week, it's clear that we need leadership at both companies. But
well, yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I've been talking about Marvel in the past. I'm obviously not talking about the absolute shit show that Marvel is right now.
Next up, Nerd says, I think that's the very reason why you can't get a good Fantastic Four or anything today, because the concept of family is culturally eroding.
I don't know. On Max's channel last night, he and Drew and Kyle were going through the reviews for Ryan North's Fantastic Four and all the reviews on League of Comic Geeks saying that this is the best Fantastic Four run of all time.
Not if you read this week. This week's was awful.
Yeah. And that League of Comic Geeks, everything's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I honestly think that any I know people who've gone and left middling to negative reviews and they've been deleted. So everything there is just
I've had that happen to me in my burner account.
I do like the Fantastic Four. They had a really good Fantastic Four book at DC there for a minute. The Terrifics.
Yep.
And even that one character they had, Josh, the Silencer, she was really cool, and she was married and she had a kid, but she didn't want her family to figure out who she was. That was a good part of the hero.
How about even
Agreed.
recently? The idea Jeremy Adams had Wally West, and it was a family book, and they said specifically, he told me that it wasn't the direction that they wanted to have the character take. And then we have Cy Spurrier.
Even though the sales were rising, they still removed it from the book.
Yeah, I talked about this. Like when he told me that they had already said, the sales immediately rose after he was already told he was off the book. Like that was the pity of it. They didn't wait enough.
Hey, this book is getting successful. How can we stop that?
Yeah.
We'll
Size
derail
area.
that.
That's what size
Size
is.
area.
Size,
Yeah, like,
size
we don't need this. This Wally West Flash book is embarrassing us. Let's make it lower.
I was reading that top 50 for April and then went back for March. I was looking for the Flash. Am I just spelling it incorrectly? Because I was having trouble finding it.
I was looking for DC.
Yeah, that was
Not a lot
well,
bad.
if you look to all 50, you can find them
You
9
spin
times
a little,
month.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Then that Flash book is not good. Callum says, I literally said out loud, that's not how the Force works when I saw that Acolyte trailer. And the Jedi don't say peace is a lie. That's the Sith.
Peace is a lie. There is only passion.
I didn't see the second Acolyte trailer. Is it something? Should I brace myself and do it?
You
just to get
should.
ready?
They had me watch it on. I was on Verbal Riot earlier this week, and I hadn't seen it yet, and so they had me watch it live. And it's pretty much like if you've ever seen me rag on people who do trailer reactions, where they're just like, "Ooh," and acting like they're all spazzing out. It was pretty much how I always thought my trailer reactions would be, which is just me sitting there like. Except like nothing, like I didn't even get like an eyebrow raise. It was just like, wow, there's nothing in this trailer that interests me, and
It's
so
very
much that is
dark
wrong.
and it looks depressing.
Mm-hmm.
That's how to sell a product.
Well, where Star Wars has always been very patriarchal, so this is going to be like strong women in charge. Yes.
We haven't seen that at all.
Never.
Lade
That's
says
not what the last 5 years have been.
LeBron
It's 10
always is in Michael's and Wilt's shadow.
And I would add Kobe's.
And Bill Russell.
Yeah, there you go.
Keep
Larry
going.
Bird,
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Larry Bird, I love
Magic.
Frank.
Well, really, he's in Michael
Magic,
and
Dr. J.
He does have more titles than Will.
and Bill Russell.
But
That's what I'm saying. It's more like
Will,
Michael and Wilt. Or I'm
well,
sorry,
Will,
Bill Russell.
Will had
they
the
have
misfortune of playing in the Bill Russell era. So there was
Yeah.
that.
He'll never be a John Havlicek. I just want to act old.
You are old.
old.
I am. I don't have to act.
He's so old. He was playing for the Celtics when I lived there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not the world's biggest LeBron fan. I don't like the chasing titles thing. It bothers me.
Oh, you have to
That's
go
why
to
I was-
team to team to try to
Yeah.
to build up
That's why
your
I like-
resume. Yeah.
Especially what LeBron did, because he would go to a team, he would make them trade everything that they had off and every future asset that they could get out to bring in the players that he wanted. And when the team clearly wasn't going to win anymore, he would leave them in a lurch with all these contracts that for players that weren't worth the money and no draft picks left.
Yep.
You left out a step, and getting a coach or two fired.
But
Before
yes,
the season.
two coaches fired. You gotta,
Oh my God, he's the Tom King of NBA basketball.
he comes
He's
in,
getting
fires
people
the
fired.
first coach, handpicks a successor, fires that guy, handpicks another successor, and every team he ends up on, they end up in like the worst position possible.
Yeah, Lakers just ran their coach this week.
Yeah. Caleb says 97 makes me sick of Rogue shipping with Magneto.
Haven't watched it. Don't care.
Are you interested in Rogue and Magneto, Doc?
Not really. I mean, they had I got my share of that during Age of Apocalypse. That's all I ever really needed. I got the taste that I needed after they had, after the whole Savage Land arc.
And that was just
where
like
I
a flirtation in the Savage Land.
It was.
It
It was.
never really led to anything.
Yeah, it was a flirtation that was like, this could be an interesting pairing. And then I got it in Age of Apocalypse, and I'm like, okay, I'm good. That was it. I got the taste. I got a taste. I'm fine. Let's go back to the thing that I know works.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in Magneto's sense, any man that was with Rogue in the Savage Land was going to fall in love.
Yeah. And look, I'm just going to put this out there. I don't think they're pushing shipping. They did earlier in the season, but that's done. It's been done.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Calvin. You're talking about old stuff. Then he says, but on the good side, 97 Storm loses the Mohawk and gets her iconic suit back.
Yep.
Glad
Hey,
to see Wolverine in the brown costume.
Brown, yeah.
Did I see correctly? They gave Scott the blue costume with the yellow shorts and the skull cap.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Like the 80s
Mhm.
Pride of the X-Men
Yep.
costume. Okay, awesome.
Where
like
he was
that.
voiced.
Nice.
He was voiced by Michael Bell, the voice of Duke from G.I. Joe and Quackerjack from Darkwing Duck, among many other roles.
Take your word for that one.
Very good. Let's say thank you very much. We got a couple of Patreon supporters to thank. We got Luke Parsons, who protects the people of Boomtown as the Mad Marshal himself. Thank you very much, Luke, for supporting the channel over on Think Critical Patreon. If you go and support us there, we really appreciate it. And we give back in the form of tons of extra podcasts and awesome conversations over on there. There's a link in the video description to the Patreon. Also, thank you very much to Eric Linden, Funk Force himself, protector of the groove, who upped his support this week. Really appreciate that stuff. And I hope everybody is enjoying the verbal stylings of Aaron Sparrow and Doc and Jim and Nick Weiser and myself as we are doing our damnedest to make sure that the Patreon is absolutely awesome. Now let's get into this interview. We had a big interview from ICV2.com with Dan Buckley after Dan Buckley gave the keynote speak at Comics Pro 2024. Doc and I had a pretty interesting conversation about this. Obviously, I believe it was on Monday, Aaron. As somebody who follows the industry and has seen what's been happening over the last 10 years or so, is Dan Buckley completely in denial? Is he unaware? It almost seemed like he did at one point say, we see there's been a change in people's attitudes and their buying habits, but we don't know how to actually sell to them now.
Which is always great when your president says, we don't understand our customer. We don't know what they want. We've tried nothing, and we're all out of ideas. It's so funny. It's if only there were a place where there were thousands upon thousands of hours and videos where comic book fans were delineating the problem with the company and with the direction and why they don't want to buy comics anymore. If only that existed, where Dan Buckley could find the market research that he so desperately needs to try to right this ship. This is a guy who's been in his position too long. He's been in a bubble. And this is always the problem, is if you're not a man of the people, if you're not out there amongst the fans, if you're not meeting them, if you're not talking to them, if you're not engaging with them on social media, if you're not like really hearing what they have to say and you're not willing to listen to it, and all you do is sit in your office and talk to guys like Tom Brevoort and CB Cebulski with your head, where everybody's got their head firmly planted up each other's asses, you're never going to know what the problem is. And I think he knows what the problem is. I think he knows exactly what the problem is, but he can't admit it. He can't admit it because they need that, they need to keep making Disney happy. And Disney, of course, has to keep pleasing BlackRock with all of their DEI checkboxes. And so he just has to come out there and do the corporate speak and say, oh, yeah, like tastes are changing and we're just trying to figure it out. We're trying to navigate it. No, tastes have not changed. The comic industry has been successful for as long as it has because they knew what fans wanted. They wanted tales of adventure, tales of heroism with their favorite characters, compelling stories with great art. That's what drew people into the comic book industry. And if you don't know that, then you need to quit. And Dan Buckley definitely needs to quit. He needs to fire everybody. You want to fix Marvel? Fire everybody at Marvel, with the exception of a few people, and then quit.
Yep.
Tank it on the way out the door.
That whole interview was just weird because every point that was brought up that he then commented on, I'm like, dude, you were so far on the like wrong side of this. And but what's weird is like it's like he acknowledges it. They, as far as even content, they brought up the fact that hey, there's a lot of conversation that by diversifying your line, you've pushed out your core audience. He's like, oh, I don't believe that's the case. And I'm like,
okay.
and then whenever after he's done saying that, he's like, well, that was a sales program, or that was a sales strategy, and I'm like, your job is to make content, to sell content. So if it's a sales strategy, then you're altering the content, you dumb motherfucker. Like it was the most baffling thing that he could somehow delineate between sales decisions, like marketing decisions, and content decisions, who cares who made the decision? I don't care if it comes from the marketing department or if it comes from the editorial department. The decision was still the same because you're still altering the same product for an intended outcome.
Yep.
You forgot to entertain us, and you started preaching to us. That's exactly what happened. You hired activists instead of writers. You hired activists instead of storytellers. And so what are they doing? They're filling your books with all of their activism, and they can't write a story. And that's why we got, as where was it in the chat? As Kevin said in the chat, space lesbians eating cheesecake.
I mean, it's true. Like, one, I got to give ICV2 credit, because when they started asking questions, he went with this generic thing that we've seen the industry do, where they're talking about, the overall book sales that are including manga and everything else. And then they drilled down like, okay, but cool, but what about direct market? Like, what are you guys doing? And like, they talked about quality and content. And they also talked about how they keep relaunching books, and that how that gives customers an out because it makes it hard for them to invest. And he's like, oh yeah, that's just something like we had to do, but we're going to try a different strategy and see if we can shoot for 10 issues in a series. And I'm just like, dude, it's not something you had to do. It's because you're fucking morons and you're chasing that number one because you get that boost from number one. And you did that for 10 years now, if not more, without looking at the degrade that it has on the title over time. Like, you never get back up to where you were every time you do this. You're giving people an out, and you especially have that data there, and you're not using it. Like, that's just stupidity at its finest.
Well, you also got to remember they're dealing with the fact that, and Heidi McDonald said so, that everybody in my generation died off.
Yep.
So I'm not even here. So
there's nobody like Max who's 30 years old and reading comic books. That doesn't exist. Yeah. Max is dead too.
Max
is too old.
Too old.
Jim.
Yes. We need to rename this show as Comics Aficionados from Beyond the Grave.
Comic cadavers.
Maybe
geriatric comics. There we go.
Yeah, even mine.
No. See, because that implies we're still alive.
Alive. That's true.
They think that we're dead.
Look, we could go with the comics undead. How about that?
If we're all dead, how is Heidi McDonald still alive? She's older than any of us. You want to talk about it? She's like, oh, nobody would want John Byrne on a book. I'm sorry, Heidi, you're the oldest, so therefore, by your rules, you are the most out of touch.
I think she is older than you, Eric.
Holy God!
Yeah, she's
that's old.
You're not that old, Breen. Were you comforted to know that the bad offerings by Marvel that drove off their core audience was part of their publishing plan?
Well, it's a sound strategy.
It wasn't on accident. We meant to do it.
Marania in the chat says Eric Breen is a Force Ghost confirmed.
Hey, they did try awfully hard for 10 years to run us off. And they eventually you succeed.
Yep. Yeah.
It does make you wonder, though, that it does make you feel like he's got just as good a plan as Jim Lee to get people back. Like, there is no plan.
There is no plan.
We need the Wednesday Warriors back, and now here's Wolverine by Saladin Ahmed.
When Josh mentioned said the thing that article that struck me the most was, I've okayed some series for 10 issues, and then 10 to 20. He goes, not all of them. He goes, but I think that's a start. It's like, I think the days of the 500 issue series might be a stretch. It's like, bitch, put 1 0 after that 5, and that's good. That's a stretch.
Yeah. And when he's talking about it and saying, well, it's like he's acting like there's those are your two options: 5 to 10 issues or 500. Those are the only two options he has. Well, I can't feel like we need to green light this for 500 issues. 40 years is a little bit much to dedicate to one author. And we need to change and relaunch with a new number one for the next writer that comes on. So I think we will only give you 10 issues. What?
Here's the part that Dan Buckley either refuses to understand or will never understand. The Wednesday Warrior concept, what he's discounting is a lot of that were collectors. You lose the collector's aspect when nothing you collect lasts longer than 12 issues. Eventually, you just nope out. And if you're not giving fans something to collect while you're raising prices into the stratosphere and giving them content that no one outside of, I'm not going to beat that dead horse, wants, this is what you get. I said, what used to be, in the late 80s, you go in on Wednesday and you had to wait. It was like a New York City subway in rush hour. Now there's 5 or 6 people at the most.
Yeah. Well, and he's talking about, there's a whole portion in there too where he's like, oh, we need these Wednesday Warriors. People used to come in and browse, and now they only come into their shop, maybe once a month, if that, to just pick up their books. And he's like, we got to get them back in. He's failing to realize, you have to give them content. You have to give them a reason to come back in. If you're gonna just put shit on the stands every week like you're doing, then that's on you, man. That's not on the customers. That is 100% on you. And we're talking about him looking forward for planning. This dude can't even look at the past 20 to 30 years to figure out what to do, because he blatantly talks about graphic novel sales and how it hasn't been the biggest focus for Marvel, even though he acknowledges that's been so dominant since the 90s.
Okay, what are you going to browse when you go in there? The back issues of the stuff that didn't catch your eye when they were on the new walls? I said, because this industry, I said, you spend a decade chasing the old timers out. So most of the people that are buying new comics don't want the old back issues because they're problematic. And the stuff is coming out now. Once it comes off the new wall, you might as well put them in witness protection, because they're not going anywhere after that. Those bins, you can hide $20 bills in those back issues. And the only difference between that and putting it in a bank is you're not going to get interest on them.
Do you know how one of the ways that you got new readers in is you had old readers that would tell potential new readers how cool comics were? You got to read this story.
Yep.
It's like I was reading G.I. Joe, and the way that I got into X-Men was I had somebody who was a longtime X-Men reader tell me a little bit about the X-Men, and I was like, oh, I've seen those ads in the G.I. Joe book. And so I went out and I got an issue of X-Men, and then I got hooked into X-Men. And then through there, I got out into the wider Marvel universe. And then I got into DC. I started with Batman, and then I got to read this Robin book, and I got to go over here and I got to read this. And that's how I got in, is because there were always people who were longtime fans making recommendations to me. Once you chased everybody off, Dan Buckley, you chased off all the old time fans. We're not dead. We're just not interested in your big bag of bullshit anymore.
Well,
so you chase this all off. There's nobody left to recommend these books to younger readers, to new readers, bringing people in. That used to be what we did. We were your free marketing arm, and you ran us off.
Well, also, the reason why you built the Wednesday Warriors were collectors. Collectors need something to collect. When there's only 10 issues behind the issue you're on, you could either wait one more month and just wait for the new number one that'll basically ignore most of what happened in the previous 12 issues, or when I started, there's a reason why it's been a 30-year adventure for me picking up X-Men, because I started in issue 200 and change, and then I started reading forward. And it took me a long, but then I started reading backwards as well, because I had something to collect. There was a goal in mind. There were 200 and some issues before I started reading that I needed to get myself caught up on. And as a result, I kept reading forward, but I was also reading backwards. So even if there was a bad issue for a couple of months or a bad arc, with the new book, I'd be reading the old book, and often vice versa. There was a couple of bad stories in an old book, I'd have the new books to keep me happy, keep my interest. And now they haven't put out a good new book in close to, you have a couple issues here or there, but close to a decade. And I managed to get all the way through 600. So fuck you. There's nothing reading backwards for me anymore. At least that's new experience to me. So you have to have long runs in order to generate people interested in browsing, in looking in the back issues, in all those things. Those are all consequences of the series continuing for a long period of time and not getting constantly relaunched every 6 to 12 months.
No, he's definitely got a point there, Breen. It's like there was a time when a series getting canceled after 75 issues was like, wow, that really didn't work. I'm surprised it didn't go on longer than that, or even like 125 issues. If you make it to 50 now, like you really did something. That's a huge achievement. And the way that you stimulate browsing is that you know what you're investing in is going to be worth your time. If you know that every time you pick up a new series, the greatest likelihood outcome is that it will be canceled within 12 issues. Why would you want to browse? If I hear that it's good, I'll just get the trade.
The last, other than Spider-Man, which is going to get to 50, I don't know how much farther it'll go, but I mean, other than that, the last time I remember a book getting to 50 at Marvel was Captain Marvel, so just so they could tie the run from that misogynistic run from 2006 to 2010.
Wolverine will get to 50 as
Wolverine,
well,
yeah.
but then as soon as it gets to 50, it's going to reboot back to 1.
Are they that close?
It's
They're
at 49.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then X-Force
that's the high water mark now. Will Marvel ever see an issue 100 again?
I sincerely doubt it. Because you had Captain Marvel that got to 50. You have Wolverine, you have X-Force, Spider-Man and Deadpool got to 50, and that was considered long running. I think Miss Marvel, they managed to get the no, I think that was the Captain Marvel run.
Yeah.
I think I'm confusing them. But yeah, they will force certain books to get there regardless of whether or not they sell. Just so they could be like, this is the highest number. Oh, and I think Avengers got to 50.
It actually got to 60 something, but that was a couple years ago. In each, but they're rare. I mean, that's the point. There's again, I said that the new books, you need both. You need the people buying the new books. You need the people collecting for this hobby, this industry to work, and treating I guess not ever having a stake in the back issues financially. The two major companies never really thought of it as being something that they needed to concern themselves with. And maybe at the time it's because so many titles had been around for so long. Well, now everything starts over every year. Comic books have seasons instead of runs. And I said it's a disincentive for collectors. And I said it just said to like they said, you're never going to get the Wednesday Warriors back. Doing if you can't recognize the problems, and he doesn't seem to recognize the problems.
Absolutely not. He's definitely one of the big reasons for that problem. Like even like a Daredevil from Chip Zdarsky, which was pretty successful. They rebooted that in the middle of the run with the same writer and same artist, continued on the same story just to get back to a number one. This new era from the ashes, everything that we've heard from Tom Brevoort it's picking up off of everything that happens in Fall of X. It's not really a restart of anything. Why even reboot the number on it? Just put a new creator on it and throw a new banner on it and just keep going. But they're like almost addicted to this number one nonsense.
Yeah, they are. I think I said it when you went to step away, but it's they're just chasing that peak they get with number ones without looking at what it does to the rest of the line or the rest of the issues.
Short-term gain that does long-term damage.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then did y'all? I'm really curious to hear what y'all thought about this. But the part where they mentioned, what are you doing to try to keep talent? And he's like, "Oh, I don't think we're having to fight for talent. It's not a problem. There's plenty of talent out here." And I'm just like, dude, you couldn't pay people, you couldn't bribe people to come in and write X-Men. You can't tell me you don't have a problem keeping talent. You can't pay people in general. That's why so many people are leaving. There's a problem here. Like, you know, and I get wanting to kind of, you know, be politically correct and put a good face out there and try to make it look like everything's good. But when the whole house is burning down around you and people are sitting here watching it burn, you can't go bullshit like this with people. It just makes you look incompetent.
I guess
If there's so much talent out there, why don't you have any on your books?
They do have talent, Aaron. They have super talent.
Super talent.
I guess
boys.
one of the good things that he touted was their new approach to events or whatever. And Jim, we got Blood Hunt #1 last week. We had a Moon Knight tie-in. This week we got 3 tie-ins. I think it was Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Avengers, as well as
Venom as well. And
Venom also tied in, and then a couple of tie-in books. And I know you like the tie-ins, not the miniseries like the Dracula Blood Hunt or Blood Hunters, but you did at least like Spider-Man and Avengers. So maybe the events will get better. Maybe.
Yeah, I just the thing is with those books, a lot of times I think that these writers can't get out of their own way, like Zeb Wells or even Jed MacKay himself in his Avengers run. That it seemed like they just wanted to have fun with it. But I'm not going to tell you that they were integral tie-ins that they are going to prove that you need to buy these things. And even then, with me liking those, and again, it's a low bar of liking something more than what had been coming out. But I don't know. There's so many issues. I don't know how many times you can see vampires getting killed by people. You know what I mean? It's like that's already getting pretty lame and pretty, you know.
It's only 2 weeks into a 4-month event.
Yeah, and I don't know. And it seems, I mean, just the idea that this story is 60 whatever issues is just, it's insane. And it shows you, again, like when Tom Brevoort said, hey, we're going to have these X-Men books come back. And somebody said, oh, you're going to thin the line. He's like, oh, no, the bean counters say we have to have this amount. And that's, you know, everything that we're talking about with people getting down on things and collecting and stuff like that. When you realize that an event or anything isn't based on the strength of the story. It's just, we have to get this amount of issues. We have to find somebody to do it. And then let's just throw it out there and you just hope for the best. And it's
that's the worst part, Jim, is because you and I are reading a ton of books from all the publishers, and Marvel is just rough because they're back to putting out over 80 books in a given month. So we're talking, you know, on average 20 titles coming out in a week.
Yeah.
And there's like maybe 1 or 2 good books.
And it's true. And the thing is, and Josh would be one to say as well, because DC, I mean, especially in the New 52 deal, they had a ton of books. Like they had to have this amount of books and whatever. They have less and less and less now. And they all stink. So it's not even just the idea of too many, too little or whatnot. But when you have 18 to 20 books each week, and me and you try to read each one and talk about it on the Patreon show, and it gets to be depressing that you're like, what's next? And it just goes down. And the idea that we're forcing ourselves to do that is one thing, but nobody's forcing themselves to read or buy those. And that's where you're going to have problems. And even the big books that you usually could count on, they're not there because the writing isn't there.
Definitely been a mass exodus of talent.
Yeah, and in that Dan Buckley interview, the idea, like, you can read between the lines in any of these things, and when he keeps trying to say, well, we know it's not great, but it's not as bad as people think, you know that he knows and thinks that's what he said. He wouldn't say that if it wasn't the deal. And the problem is now, remember when we used to have this whole argument 2 years ago, it was always like, oh, what? You say that it's bad. Well, look, the industry's doubled what it was the year before. And now what are they doing when what we were saying then was true and it's worse now? And they actually have to kind of admit it. I mean, it might be refreshing for them to kind of say, yeah, we know that things are really, really bad. We're sorry. And we'll get back to being good, but they're not going to do that.
We're hiring bus stop crack whores, but as far as we know, they've never stabbed anybody.
Giving handy Joes.
Handy Joes.
Hand Joes. Playing the hand Joe.
Jim, I do have a question, because you said, like, you think he knows, he's just not saying it. Do we really think he knows, though? Because he's got this whole conversation in the interview talking about the shipping and distribution. And he's like, oh, this is, you know, we know there's a lot of changes and changes are tough, but this is overall really great for comic shops. And
you're right.
Great. He's talking about how they're getting better deals. And I'm like, dude, every comic shop owner that I know right now is talking about how they're paying substantially more to have their book shipped because they're not getting discounts. It's multiple shipments. I'm like, what like psychotic reality are you living in?
And they must have a lot of yes men, a lot of people around them. And I'm telling you, if we have this interview in 3010, they'll be like, yeah, we're still recovering from that pandemic. That's all they ever say. That's like the instant excuse for everything.
They're get out of jail free card.
It is. They don't want to look at the comics that they have here and who they've been hiring and how they're not paying. It's the pandemic. It's just, that it continues to be.
Don't worry, retailers. Yes, the books are crap. Yes, our comics pros go on Twitter and denigrate your customers and call them Nazis and ists and phobes. Yes, we have too many variant covers and we're raising the price ridiculously. But those new Comics Pro categories, they're going to fix everything.
And the problem is, and with this, the idea where, you said that people go on and they're insulting people, Dan Slott's blocking all these people. So there'll be an initial bunch of people who, if they're not fully in, there are people who will just bail on things when it gets like that, or they don't like the politics and things and all that. But there's always still the hardcore fans. They're reading the books, actually. And when they're bad, that is an exit. But that's a slow exodus. And we're seeing it now. It takes a couple years, I think, for the actual, it'll get better. And then when the people who are buying the books, like everybody here, when we bail, it's done. I mean, it's not just the age or whatever. It's that, the real hardcore fans, when they can't take this bullshit, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, this is somebody else that's absolutely, utterly convinced themselves that the key to somehow fixing comics is for people that aren't in comics to know what the sales numbers are and to be able to readily grasp that data. Motherfucker, you have an accounting department. That's what their job is. So does DC. Every single publisher knows exactly what their sales are, and every single BarCon they find out what the other guy's sales numbers are. So this is not a major hurdle to grasp. It doesn't affect anything. It doesn't actually have any tangible benefit. What they could trot out some fucking sales charts. How does that
help? They can show on Batman #1 selling book.
Yes. How does that draw interest from readers? Readers aren't going to decide that just because Amazing Spider-Man selling 80,000, they should go back to the store and start buying it. They don't. Comic buyers don't buy based on the actual sales number. We don't know it. Some of us know it. Most of us don't care about it. We can use it to show that, something is successful, but we buy it based on whether or not we have heard really good things about it from people we like or people who we trust, or we've read it ourselves and enjoy it. That's really all that matters. To us, it doesn't really, we could trot out X-Men sold 250,000 copies a month in the 80s as a justification to go back to 80s style storytelling or 80s style distribution, marketing, whatever. But for none of that is showing that it's a good story. Good story is based on what's actually inside the pages. It makes my head hurt that we can get this kind of logical disconnect from someone like him. But at the same time, that's been the entire comics industry's, I think it was Heidi McDonald or Rich Johnston. One of them came up with this brilliant theory that sales charts are what was good about comics. And that's why comics sold really well before. And now that we don't have sales charts and they're selling bad, that's the correlation. That's the causation for why comics are selling bad, because there's not sales charts anymore.
Well, even the sales charts, if you go back to the 70s, ASM was shipping 270,000 copies in a month. Archie was doing 300,000.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
because it's done happened slowly over the course of decades. I don't know, man.
It's this weird conclusion that they've jumped to, and they're just like, well, comic sales are down and sales charts went away, so that must be the reason why comic sales are down. It's this weird correlation equals causation thing where any amount of critical thought put into it for 10 seconds tells them, yeah, that's a retarded idea.
The other thing that's out there, I'm sure Jim and Josh remember this, even when the sales charts went away because Diamond wasn't Monopoly anymore and you had Lunar and all that stuff come on board, when supposedly Batman shipped like 200,000 copies for James Tynion, they did a fucking press release for it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, they would crawl
because the number was good. They haven't done that in over a year.
No, they haven't. Yeah. And you ended up, and it sucked. And a lot of people thought that it was a conspiracy. Oh my God, that they're not releasing numbers. And like you said, they never did. That was Diamond stuff. And even then, when the sales were bad, they would try to manipulate it and things, but they always had big announcements. And they were always announcing this is getting a 4th printing, like all these things that they would really crow about. And now what you get are individual writers saying, well, I just checked and my book was number 3 on the Amazon chart for an hour and things like that. And it's not the same. And I think they're actually at a point when it would be real great to get definitive numbers to really see and call, actually see and call out some of this nonsense. You don't get them. But like you said, this is where they would really, that they're not, I would like to say they're not going to lie. But if something is really huge, they're definitely going to take advantage to announce that.
They've talked about it multiple times.
Yeah. I'm saying they could say right now, oh my God, this was this. But you're right. They're not saying anything. And that's
they're still trying to act like going to 2nd and 3rd and 4th printing is a big deal. But
I
don't know if anybody's known this. Apparently, the money in comic books is shrunk down to such a degree that they only print to order. Like back in the day, Marvel and DC would do bigger printings, and they would have stuff that you could.
And that's why
from the
when you don't
shops.
see the sales initially or the ship, you don't know how much they shipped.
Well, so a 2nd and a 3rd printing was a big deal because they went through all the stuff that they projected that they could sell. Mm-hmm. Now they're going through all the stuff that they knew that they could sell. Then they have reorders happening before it's even come out, and it's already going to a 2nd printing. And they're like, "Oh yeah, we're doing great." It's like, no, there's no money here, and they're not printing big runs to begin with.
I'm sorry, Doc. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't know if many of you, some of you, Wes, you weren't reading comics back then, but Breen, you'll probably remember this. Aaron, you'll probably remember. Jim, you might. When Joe Quesada came into power at Marvel was in a very, very bad place financially. And one of his things, he had like 3 rules that initially. It was, he got rid of smoking. Got rid of variants, and he only printed to order. And when a book did get a 2nd printing, and they actually touted this as like in order to promote scarcity towards collectors so that they go out and buy rather than waiting for word of mouth or whether it was any good. And it actually did work for them. And that's when they got into doing the variant stuff, but they did them as quote unquote special editions, or it was essentially a 2nd print, or they do it as director's cuts, and they had different names depending on whether it was like a launch title or just a later issue. And it worked as a sales gimmick. Now because they're doing so much of the variant stuff, they can't do any of that. And so now admitting that they're printing to order would actually be there's no incentive to wait, or there's no incentive to buy urgently, because you can buy one of everybody's over ordering anyways in order to feed some incentive variant scheme and satisfy their whale customers, the ones that are left. And so they can't do it. Now they have to hide the fact that they're printing to order.
Well, for a lot of companies, it's a scam too. When I was at Boom Studios, they would print to order, and they would print the second printing at the same time, even though they'd put that order in, they'd have that cover ready because they were printing to order or printing just above, and just so that they could make the announcement like this is sold out and we're going to a second printing. But that second printing came in at the exact same time as the regular printing because it was part of that initial print run. It was all just designed so that the marketing department could go
Artificial
out
scarcity.
and create hype.
Yeah, it's a big lie, and I see it all the time on like Bleeding Cool and The Beat and stuff. I was like, you guys are literally reporting on nothing.
The other thing that they would do, and the first time that this happened was with Darkwing Duck #1, is they would always have a convention variant, but then they would also offer it to Diamond to sell off the additional copies, whatever they didn't sell at the convention. So the Darkwing Duck #1 variant for San Diego, where he's getting hit by the lightning, or it's the Dark Knight Returns cover, where he's getting hit by the lightning bolt. They sold out. It's the first time they ever sold out of a variant of a Comic-Con exclusive. They sold out at San Diego. They went back to print to fill their Diamond orders. So the edition that you have might actually be a second printing. If you didn't buy it at the show, it might be a second printing.
Man, you just rain on everyone's parade.
I know.
Yeah, I mean,
everyone's running to check their book now to see if there's a way they can tell.
There's no difference. You can't tell.
Gosh.
Because they just reran it. To fill the Diamond order, so they didn't have to say, "Oh, sorry, we didn't. We couldn't fill those."
Yeah. He did say in the interview that he does, because we're talking about sales numbers, he does think releasing sales numbers is a good idea. I really wish the interviewer would have been like, so is that a commitment that Marvel's going to release their sales each month? I wish he would have just thrown it out there. Because Dan Buckley's like, the industry's better when we all know how we're doing. And I wish they would have just put it out here you go. Okay, commit to it.
You know how you're doing.
You're the president of Marvel.
Yeah.
Hey, how many copies did we ship?
Yes. And how many did we ship in comparison to the year before? He could do this every way that he wants. He's got an entire department that does that. It's their job. So the idea that he's clueless on how they're doing right now compared to how they've done in the past, or even how they're doing compared to Bat or DC Comics, I think is ridiculous. I'm sure those guys talk to each other once in a while. Normally, industry peers do that. There's normally cross communication. Should we hear from the folks? We do have some super chats. Caleb says, Buckley reminds me too much of not just Feige, but mostly Jim Lee. For some reason, his face appeared in my head.
Buckley's a guy
Buckley talked.
Buckley's a guy that is way too. Yeah, I need a drink this early too. He's a guy that's been way too safe in his job for way too long, and has absolutely no incentive to come up with anything better. He will never get beyond his current station. He has a 0% chance of taking Kevin Feige's job, which is the only job above his. He has a 0% chance that he will get into, he would even get like Jeff Loeb's old job if they were to bring that back and have a television division. He has exactly zero incentive to do better in his role because there's no gain for him. There's nowhere he can go.
Just good enough to where you don't get fired.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically. Callum then says, I think most of the writers literally want their readers dead. Mark Waid does, so does Mark Brooks and so many others.
I
don't think they literally want their readers dead. Maybe metaphorically.
You don't think the way that Mark Waid came out and defended the people named in Ed Piskor's suicide note, you don't think the way that he came out guns a-blazing to defend them, you don't think that he relished, he relishes the idea of having that power to actually get people to kill themselves? I think you're underestimating how bitterly unhappy that man is.
Well, I don't think he wasn't named in it.
No, but like I said, he
was supporting.
Now you just made him vow to try harder next time.
Yeah, I don't know. He did say he would rather have the industry burned down to the ground than have to work with people that don't believe exactly the way he does. So
yeah,
not exactly a pleasant man.
You don't think he'd love to have people put into camps? I mean, that's that kind of attitude.
Wes, have you read a Mark Waid book since then? Because I know you stopped after that. I haven't either.
I did. I gave up on Batman, Superman, World's Finest. I gave up on Shazam. I've not read Absolute Power, free comic book day edition, and I'm not going to read anything Absolute Power at all.
I'm full in.
That's why I got Jim. He's my Mark Waid correspondent.
I'm here. I'm here.
Did you read the free comic book day? Was it good?
Yeah, it was good. Pretty good.
There you go.
Pretty good. And he's not on Shazam anymore. It's Josie Campbell. So
yeah.
You know, that's where I draw the line. I'm telling you right now, and I say this all the time to people, you know, everybody has their reasons for things, and I'm never going to say anything's right or wrong, but I like comics, and there's a lot of shit. And so if there's one book that I can grab onto or something like that, I can't just let it go. And I really just sit in the middle with all that shit. I really don't care what they say, or else pretty much I wouldn't be able to read anything or watch anything anymore. So that's my deal. There you go.
I don't know, Jim.
Thank you.
Didn't you try to didn't
What?
you get in a 2-week argument with somebody because they said something you didn't like?
Well, that's the thing. Again, everybody has their own deal, and I don't tell
the viewers.
I want to, you know, strangle some people. But again, maybe that's why people could be mad at me. I don't know. I end up getting personally upset at things. But in this whole deal of everybody fighting back and forth, I think it's just two sides that end up, you know, yelling about things that aren't between covers and all that. And I just, it gets tiresome at points to, you know, whittle down what little we have. So I like I said, I go all the way. I don't know.
Very nice. Rate that 7. Marvel knows they messed up, but they refuse to admit it and refuse to correct the problem for a number of reasons.
Well, it's the fans' fault.
It's the path of least resistance, right? I don't have to invest any time. I don't have to invest any brain power. I don't have to invest any type of ownership of the problem if I acknowledge that it actually happened. It's pretty easier just to keep doing what we're doing and be like,
Well, I think it
Brett Parker's
actually
pretty good.
I think it's actually a little bit more insidious than that. And what I mean by that is that, well, it's both insidious and cover their ass. A lot of their creatives, the ones that are still willing to work for them for the pocket change and pocket lint that they pay in, were the ones that went so hard against the customer. And they supported them. If they were to, you know, change course now, backtrack, go the other direction, it would be a tacit admission, not only that the readers were right, the customers were right, but also that the creatives were wrong. And the creatives will still stand by their actions, their behavior, their everything with fuck the readers, where the only thing that matters is what we want to do. And the few people that they have left that they can actually call on to create books might get pissed off. These are people that are childish. So the likelihood that they'll get pissed off that the company essentially threw them under the bus in the process of trying to, I don't know, stay in existence as a company, they lose access to the few people willing to pay in the poverty wages that they're willing to offer.
These people you're talking about, though, that were so behind attacking the fans and whatnot, it makes sense that they would be behind it, because if this industry was in better shape, those people couldn't get anywhere near it.
Yeah.
So it's in their best interest, because the only way they can work in this industry is if they shrink it to the point to where there's nobody left that they can pay. So they have to pay the Vitas and the Dannys of the world out there.
Not much.
Yeah.
No, but like I said, if comics were selling, you know, if this were a sane industry, you know, those folks couldn't get their calls answered. There'd be no, you know, I love those things that Richard likes to show, that the amount of work assignments these people have had, those wouldn't exist if this industry hadn't just started going south 10 years ago. Because if we were all still buying in mass, they wouldn't be in the industry. It's pretty simple.
You're not wrong.
if good work got greenlit, then Jesse Blaze Snyder's Daredevil pitch with Marco Cicchetto would be going right now. My Justice League Unlimited comic with Lionel Castellani would be going right now. There's so many good pitches that go in, and I know of many writers. I'm not going to call them out here because I don't want to get anybody on bad terms with editors that they're trying to work with and things like that. But I know so many writers that have turned in so many good pitches that I've looked at, that I've helped them with, and those don't get approved. But what gets approved? Sarah Brunstad has an idea for Weapon X-Men, and her big idea is, what if one of the Wolverines was a lady and she was the bestest ever? And then they hand that to Christos Gage and goes, "Hey man, try to make chicken salad out of this chicken shit."
Let me ask you guys. My theory is the reason why Mark Waid is back at DC as their head writer is because he has burned so many bridges and he is so toxic in his behavior that he couldn't go out and do the creator-owned thing anymore like he used to be able to do, because Mark Waid's book of something that doesn't have 80 years of superhero history attached to it couldn't get off the ground. Am I wrong?
No, I don't think you're wrong. He's burned his bridges with
Yeah.
customers in that regard. But at the end of the day, I used to defend Wade in certain aspects because I've seen the better parts of his personality. Unfortunately, he rarely gives into those, and he always gives into the bitterness and the darkness in his personality. It seems, and so he gets by just on being a talented writer in a pool of ever shrinking talent. So, the smaller that pool gets, the better and better he looks. He's always been good, but he looks really good now because everything else is so bad. So when you get something that's, from him that's even competent, it's going to look light years ahead of everything else that's out there on the market.
Nerd says, this issue with the big two makes me feel like there's no value in comics. People would rather complain than bet on indie comic books with good stories.
I hate to break it to everybody, but indie comics will never put asses in seats. I mean, they might be very, very good. They might be a good way to kind of, keep the medium on life support, but you need big commercial properties in order for the industry to remain vibrant. I it's not an issue of that's what I want to happen. That's just basic economics.
We said we needed, when we in the record business, we needed NSYNC to sell by the box load so we could carry the Meat Men.
Yeah,
and that's
the Meat Men carried on the shoulders of NSYNC.
Because remember, we're the Meat Men, and you suck.
And you suck.
Maybe the best album cover of all time.
That's the best it was. And I was thinking when I was reading that interview too, back to that, the idea that when they're talking about the Wednesday Warriors, and Document brought it up, the idea where, remember when you ended up having Mark Miller had that conversation with the comic shop owners and things like that, and they said you don't have that big book that's coming out every Wednesday, that parking lot book that everybody has to get. You can't even get home and read it. Like there is no reason to go to the store anymore. Just sucks.
But as far as indie books, we're going to have our best of the week today, and we're going to recommend 6 books, and 5 of them will be indie books. And Marvel and DC will still be more important. It's just the way it is. Amazing Spider-Man trumps even Transformers probably right now. Ultimate Spider-Man is certainly selling better, and indie titles are great, and I like the alternatives and all that kind of stuff. But people, unfortunately, if it's not Saga or maybe The Walking Dead, or perhaps even Transformers now, which only comes out once a month, indie titles just don't have that kind of gravity to them like a Batman does, or a Justice League, or the Avengers, or Spider-Man, or X-Men, that actually brings people into the shop and then allows them to browse out and find your books like the Last Mermaid, or you find Dawn Runner and some of these other cool concepts that are out there being done by really good creators.
They are indie comics are they can be a wonderful garnish or side dish or dessert. So they're not the steak and potatoes.
Yeah,
that's what people go to the store.
It's like going to a restaurant, and like you said, you get the same thing every time. But if you start, I'll check that out. I'll try that. It's not your main thing, but you'll try it out because you're there, and you kind of have had the same thing. And when you're not there, you're just not there. So yeah, you need that.
Yeah. Eric Jones, the big two needs to stop with paying the good artists for variety covers or variant covers and make them do interiors as well. That money reinvest to better writers.
I think Tom King debunked that. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, when Tom King was on Batman,
plenty of good.
Just made me depressed.
Plenty of good writers out there that the big two will not hire.
no, I'm saying that the money, if they had good artists doing the interiors, the money would help them reinvest in better writers. I mean, I'm saying we had good artists doing interiors for most of Tom King's books, but his books are still shitty. Like,
pretty to look at.
Probably still makes a little money.
By the way, Aaron, I saw one of your threads the other day when somebody was we need to bring back the summer annuals with the storyline through it, and you screen capped that and said that would be a great idea, but it would never work because there's so many hack writers out there who run into the ground. Did you see the guy's comment back to you?
Which one? The original
I
guy?
mean, it Crash Sharon. He goes, "What hacks? Comics have never been better."
I mean, one of those hacks is himself.
No,
Tim Sheridan is a hack.
No,
wait, is Crash Sheridan Tim
Two
Sheridan?
different lefty Sheridans.
Okay.
The dude that was on the relaunch of
Vertigo.
Vertigo, yes, that
Okay,
moron
that-
that did one book.
that should
He's
be.
never written again.
Was that the
But,
one that was
so
the,
he's trying
the
to get
music
hired.
video
That's
director?
fine. That's fine. So
Yes.
go ahead and say that.
No, I saw just with that. I saw a thing with Tim Sheridan though, and he's complaining that he's never going to work with DC again because of how they treated him. Like, you think they're calling you to write? I mean, what are you talking about?
Work
The
for
idea-
DC because your book sucked.
he's like making this big stand, and all these people are like, oh man, they treated you so bad, and they should have been all this stuff, and never realizing that they're talking about online and fighting and things, that he kind of started that with that video and things like that. But everybody's
how
like,
did DC treat him? Did he
they
give
didn't
any
stand up
examples?
for him, they said, is what they were saying.
didn't
And then
retweet it?
because he started the crazy nonsense. But the idea that this guy can't sell a book and he's like, damn them, I'll never work for them again, is like the craziest thing that I saw.
But he
this
also
week.
writes animation for Warner Brothers.
Yeah,
Like, that's
yeah,
how
yeah.
he got. That's how he got started. So
Yep,
or by attacking DC publicly,
Oh yeah,
you've now attacked
yeah.
Warner Brothers, and that's your bread and butter.
Yeah, and if it comes to that guy is
I thought he quit Twitter.
Two-faced deal, and it was
He
that,
needs to.
and there was a bunch of people like saying that they talked to him, and he was doing some. It all became a thing, and I'm like, really, you really believe him when he says this nonsense? It's bullshit.
no.
But I'm tired of the covers and the interior art not matching whatsoever. You look at that Incredible Hulk, Nick Klein fucking art on the cover. You open up and it's Danny Earls, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
This is
Mhm.
bullshit.
Well, Wes, this is Kenneth
Bullshit.
Rocafort, and he's not drawing the whole Kneel Before Doomface book. Are you saying like that's going to upset
You're
you?
bullshit, Aaron.
you're bullshit.
Bullshit.
But I got covers by Renzo, who's drawn the book. Renzo Rodriguez. He's
The A
drawn
cover?
interiors. Yeah, he's got the A cover.
But the A cover, thank you very much. That's how you're supposed to do it.
Okay.
The A cover should match the artist. My goodness.
All right, fair enough.
Nerd says the braids are more important in comics themselves, and the majority of my generation primarily know these characters from the screen. Yeah.
That's true. Like, what gets you in the door is Batman, and then what keeps you is the creative on Batman. Is the
It's
art film,
Nightwing,
it's
the better character.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue there. Nightwing's awesome. Unfortunately, Nightwing hasn't had a good book in God knows how long.
Wow.
There's a decent issue every once in a while.
Yeah.
There's a Batman Nightwing team up a few months
Well,
ago.
in
that
every
was
turd
all right.
you find some corn once in a while, Wes.
Exactly.
One thing I noticed when I looked at those top 50s for 2 months is DC is very limited in their participation, but Nightwing and Wonder Woman were 2 of the 9 both months. Superman wasn't. The March, it wasn't even the top 50, and they both jumped because I guess the House of Brainiac. But it's like, yeah, how bad is it when even the good things that they Green Lantern nowhere to be found. Jeremy Adams is a hell of a writer, but
They never
apparently
promote the book.
nobody. Yeah, well that goes. Yeah, it's unfortunate. That's true, but it's like, do the fans that they've cultivated even want good books at this point, or do they just want, with the ones that are left, do they just want the lectures Tom King delivers every month?
Perhaps. HH is the guys from Signum Comics. Shout out to all and keep it tuned to Thinking Critical. Support this great crew and head over to our website for great indie comics. The Calico trade is coming soon, and that is fantastic news. And we've got an assignment for you, HH. HH German is a known animal lover, Aaron Sparrow. When you said that we were going to talk about this, we were having a conversation on Thinking Critical Patreon, the Geek Fix podcast. And I was talking about when I went to a rodeo, and there was a monkey riding a dog that was rounding up sheep, which I thought was really hilarious. It was great. Of course, when I got to become an adult, I realized there was a guy with a whistle that was controlling the dog, not the monkey. And the monkey was actually holding on for dear life, but stayed on the dog the entire time. Is that an animal abuse? Because I don't think it is, but Aaron was very offended.
No, I think that I think that what we talked about was the fact that you were like, I will ride a horse and I will dig the spurs into it and I will tie a rope around its balls and like you like to make sure it goes faster.
I was embellishing. We said we were going to talk to him about the dog.
I thought we were talking about animal
which
abuse.
Is a real story. I've never actually grabbed a horse by the balls.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. But yes, is that animal abuse, HH, or is the monkey having
that monkey looked like he was having the time of his life riding that dog?
I imagine he probably was.
I don't think he was. That's just me.
So I think, look, I think monkeys enjoy wearing little vests and little bellhop caps and dancing for nickels.
Give them a pair of cymbals, maybe like an accordion, something like that. Then I'm in.
You wouldn't want a monkey riding a sheepdog.
I think sheep. That sounds pretty crazy. But yeah, it sounds like fun. He's got a little
cowboy hat on. He had
a little cowboy hat
he
too.
Had fucking chaps, man.
He had
cool.
chaps where they assless chaps. If they're in, I'm in.
Well, I mean, it was a monkey, so he's got the tail. So they got to be assless because he's got the tail.
Did they have a name like Dusty or some stupid thing?
Of course he had a name, but we're talking like over 20 years ago when it's all.
Yeah, come on, Wes doesn't remember the name of the monkey. Although guys,
everybody
in the chat,
I wish
put your best Western monkey names in the chat for us.
It was fun. Kalichioki, where do you guys see all this going? What is finally rock bottom for the big two? This crap is unsustainable.
DC's almost. I mean, I can't.
I imagine rock bottom is reprints only.
2 anthologies a month and reprints.
Yeah.
Rock bottom is shutting down the company and just farming the IP out to another publisher.
Licensing rather than even doing reprints.
Yep. I mean, the new licensee can do reprints and probably will, but yeah, it'll just be like no more DC, just an approval person in Burbank that looks over the material that somebody else is publishing.
See, that would be rock bottom for DC, but that might not be rock bottom for DC fans. You know, if Skybound got a hold of the Batman family, that could be pretty cool. Maybe if Dark Horse got the Superman family, that could be pretty cool.
Yeah,
get some new blood on there, new ideas. Actually, like the character. It worked out for Marvel Knights, right, Doc? Or Doc leave us?
He's left us.
He's out there choking down a heater. Like, what is this guy? Nerd in the gaming space. Good indie games put butts in seats because people support new challenges. See Paul World and Hell's Driver. Why not for comics?
We're seeing an indie revolution right now. I mean, in crowdfunding.
Yeah.
The problem is that there's a lot of crowdfunding that has kind of gotten crowdfunding in general a bad name because people either haven't delivered projects for extended periods of time, which makes people wary to invest in new projects, and also just all of the infighting that looks just like the mainstream.
You also have one big difference between you have price,
the amount of product.
Well, it's also where you go to find said product. You go to the comic shop to find said product. You can just turn on your Xbox, your Steam account, or your PlayStation, whichever of your three,
it's got a little rating on it,
and it has you have to still get people to want to have an Xbox in order to get, or a PlayStation or a Steam account in order to get them to see that Power World and Helldivers exists. And right now, the comic space is, first of all, it is so massively disorganized. There is no if you're looking at digital, there is no centralized location in order to buy. No preferential platform to buy or discover those indie products. The only place to discover those indie products are Indiegogo, where they bury them, Kickstarter, where they bury them unless the political commissar of the day is preferential to them. You don't have that same thing. You can't do a one-to-one comparison. It's a very apples and oranges situation. Now, if comics were tomorrow to find a Comixology that doesn't get swallowed up by Amazon and shoved into their Kindle before getting murdered entirely, maybe it would work. If you
a
had
central repository,
yes,
where it would start thinking about what you like and what you've liked, and then like, well, you should do this, like you do on old Netflix.
Or you need a distribution hub, and the distribution hub for comics is still the comic shop, and you have to have a reason to go into the comic shop in the first place.
And there is a disproportionate amount of product coming out in comic books when you compare it to like video games. Video games are very, very expensive. They take a really long time. They don't just come out with like 60 new video games in a week. And it's very easy to get word about a good game. Whereas in comic books, with the amount of stuff going out there, you might never actually see someone talking about that book that was actually good. You're
not having 600 video games a month, of which only maybe a half dozen are good. At a 1% hit rate, which is about what the current comic book industry is looking, 1 to 2% hit rate. That does not inspire people to be on into your product.
Mm-hmm. All right, we've got HH. He chimed in here. If they're forcing him through cruel means, then yes, that is animal cruelty. However, if they're paying that pup with some good chow, then perhaps he's good for it. Depends on how hungry he is.
What about the monkey?
Well, that seems like they're starving.
The monkey looked like he was having the best time.
I'm sure he was.
He was like holding on. He had his little hat going. He even waved it to the crowd when he was done. He was down for it, man. I think you're underselling how much.
I mean, that's a pretty good. That's pretty good life if you're a monkey, you know. Like,
and I'm certain that dog was fed really well, and he got to chase sheep around. He's a sheepdog. It's literally what
he's having the time of his life, and he's got a monkey jockey on his back. He's digging it.
Yeah. Caleb says, "Tell Sheridan to go to the docks and stay there."
Wrong, Sheridan.
Trying to get this man.
Yeah. But
no, we did talk a little bit about Tim. We did talk a little bit about Tim, so it could be.
Trying to get him arrested. HH says, "I don't agree about indie comics. TMNT was an indie title. Never count out the little guy. We always have a puncher's chance. Always, absolutely. And right now, one of the hottest properties out there is Transformers, and certainly the entire Energon universe. It seems that Duke, especially, has had some staying power and is doing very, very well. And I do think if Transformers keeps up the quality, it will become that parking lot comic book, you know. And if this week is any indication, it likely is going to be doing that, you know. But it's hard for an indie book to
well, and that's the thing. In the end, you're talking about it like, is that quite indie? You know, when you go and look at it, it's pretty big, and it's Transformers. It's Image being distributed through, you know, all that. So it's not quite the same, but it is not the big two. So that's good.
And look, please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that indie books suck or that they can never break out of that era. But if TMNT was one of the few good things going on in the 80s, it would not have saved comics. I'm sorry, it didn't matter how good it was.
You needed Batman to bring you in the door to discover it.
Yes, you need Batman, you need the Spider-Man, you need the X-Men, you need Superman to get you your ass in the door in the first place. And that's where TMNT was wonderfully successful, because it managed to capture the interest of folks after Batman and the X-Men got them through the door in the first place. Remember, TMNT was basically comic shop exclusive. It wasn't on the spinner rack. So you already had to have gotten people from never going into a comic shop to now being exposed to the product through while they were in a normie space to liking that product and turning into a reader, and then discovering the direct market from that. You needed to be 5 steps down the path in order for TMNT to be successful. It can't be the first step. That's my only point.
And I would say that Saga, as big of a hit as it is an enormous hit. Not quite what it was when it first came out once they took that 2-year hiatus. Did bring in different readers, like that new audience that Marvel and DC covered so much. But it didn't actually convert those readers into reading anything but Saga.
No.
Seemingly.
It wasn't a gateway book.
It doesn't seem that way.
Certain titles are gateway titles, like, I mean, going back to, pot doesn't lead to other drugs, but it does lead to fucking carpentry. And but it was that gateway
Hacky sack.
Yes. Carpentry and hacky sack. And ultimate frisbee.
Yes.
And fish for some reason.
Oh god.
But no, like, look, you need the gateway books, and those happen to be big commercial, big 2 titles. And
in TMNT, if it was awesome right now, would be a gateway book.
Yes, it could be now
because it's a big ass franchise.
Yes, it's a huge property now. It grew from, but it didn't do that because the other one sucked. It was because it was this great, topping on top of, it was one of those additive things that people managed to make its own meal eventually.
Nerd says, I guess that's why the current writers don't try. What's the point of the medium if people don't care about it outside of 2 companies? Just pitch movies.
That's
yeah. They had pitched movies and they were rejected. That's why they're now going to comic publishers.
A lot of those are comic books.
Yes.
Yeah, and hoping that they'll then. Yep.
Famously.
Oh yeah, no. I'm saying now you've got a lot of writers that are pitching for television or film, getting rejected. So then they're going, oh well, I'll make this a comic book, and that's a lot of indie stuff you're seeing. And then they're still hoping, okay, now that it's in this medium, maybe one of the production companies will pick it up.
Well, that was how Boom started. Is like a lot of things that they were publishing were scripts that had been floating around Hollywood forever and hadn't been picked up. So then they would pick them up as like, let's do them as a comic book, and they would do them as a comic book with the idea that then you could go into, they've got a piece of that. So then they could go into the movie studio and say, oh, look, here's like all your storyboards and things like that for this movie. And it led to a lot of like really kind of like dull comic books. But they were some of the first ones to really do that. And, then we, over the course of the next 10 years, we saw the entire industry try to do that to varying levels of very mild success.
Nerd, I appreciate what your point here, but that is a very reductive version of my argument here, and it throws out every ounce of nuance. So I'm not even going to bother.
No one's saying any books aren't great.
No.
Any books aren't great.
Yeah, they're wonderful. You just they're indie for a reason at first. They can become something bigger, but not through the failure of everything else.
Let me back up Doc here a little bit. I understand, like, it would be nice if we could get a market where the indies carried everything. But the indies are so disparate. Part of the things that get people invested in comics, the thing that gets men invested in comics, and we've always been the backbone of the comic book industry, no matter how they try to gaslight us and tell us that we're not. The reason we get invested is because of things like the lore, the shared universe. We get into all of that. We get into the details. We get into the minutia. With independent comic books, it's a little bit harder because, you're just in that one world and you're not getting a lot of supplementary material, which is kind of what we desire. So would it be nice if the indie market kind of came in and took over? I would absolutely love that. I'd love to see it. But the fact of the matter is, at least in the direct market, the mainstream, Marvel has always been the health of the industry. If Marvel is doing well, then that rising tide raises all ships. If Marvel is doing poorly, everybody suffers. And that's just always the way that it's been. So, Doc is absolutely right in that aspect. Would we like to see it another way? Absolutely. I'd like to see the industry be healthy in a variety of ways. But are we going to get there? Not with this current leadership.
Wade Deckton, could DC survive the backlash if the Anti-Monitor just erased the current Prime Earth?
But is the current DC
what backlash?
Prime Earth?
That's what the thing is there, Breen. I think, of course, some people will be upset, but I think more people will be excited as long as the books were good, right? That's the key.
Hmm.
No, Breen, you just looking at me?
No, I'm sorry. I was say that again.
You've been through every crisis in DC Comics history. I could go for another one as long as it wiped everything out. Be good.
Would we get the real Tim Drake back? Would we get the real Alan Scott back?
No,
Would
that's
we get
why
the real Tim Sheridan on a fucking book?
No, it's
They'll never work there again.
They
Wes.
couldn't
treated
survive
them
the
poorly.
backlash, and that's the problem. We all know. Listen, we know if Marvel wanted to sell 50,000 more Spider-Mans a month, put the marriage back. If you wanted, Tim Drake to sell again, give him Stephanie back. But I believe, didn't you just say the other day that they won't do it because they're afraid of the 12 psychos on Twitter? I mean, we've all heard that, but it's true. And whether it's getting ESG money or DAI money or whatever the hell it is, there are too many things that you cannot do anymore. And even if it's just that, I mean, you look at all the rules that have taken root in the last 10 years. Whereas, like I said, a hobby that was for men, for boys and men for 80 years, is now for girls. The girl has to be better than the boy at everything. The girl hero has to be better than the male hero. That's just how it works now. The woman can't be in danger. The man can. And so you've inverted everything. So no, and you can't put those. You can't fix those because it's not allowed anymore. So the big two, that's just the way it's going to be there from now on. Indie books, if you want to try it, you can, but you run the risk of, I said, just getting backlash for that even.
Well,
Yeah,
it
but
all
I think
stems from this. It all stems from this stupid survey that came out on Facebook saying that 50% of the readership for comics is women, and then the companies instead of looking at that, which was a ridiculous poll that had no scientific basis, but they took it at face value. You would think that you would look at that and you'd say, all right, man, we've got gender parity, like buying our books. Cool. Stay the course. Instead, what they said was 50%, we need to make more books that appeal to women. Well, if you've already got 50% and you believe that, you've already achieved it. Why are you changing things? So they brought in a bunch of, brain dead assistant editors. And what happened was you chased off all the men and the women weren't really there. We've got Maranya right now in the chat saying that, she's female. And what the big two wants to sell to, none of the books they claim women would like appeal to me. I prefer the classic stories to the garbage being put out now. She-Hulk currently is supposed to appeal to women and me. It's frankly hot garbage writing and art-wise. So they're not even putting out books that appeal to women. They've infantilized women, and they hired these idiots to write these books that are written like they're for children, and they're aiming it at adult women. And adult women are saying, no, I'm not into this. I'm not into this white widow like nonsense. Like, who is this for?
Absolutely.
That survey said 50% women. It didn't say 50% men hating feminists. But that's what they started basically creating comics for.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I apologize
because in their mind, all
that.
women are a monolith. This is the problem with that, that kind of like far left thinking is they just view every group of people as a monolith. And that's why they're so stymied whenever you have somebody who breaks the mold, whenever you have a gay conservative or you have a black conservative. It's like it boggles their mind and they have to break out the slurs because they don't know how else to deal with it.
Yeah, when you got a piece of white chocolate like me, fucking boggles
Yeah.
your mind.
I
Spitting dope raps. Gal says
Spitting
no
dope
one will buy a game with Sweet Baby ink involved. That appears to be the case.
Nor should they.
Lost a lot of money.
$200 million and counting. Warner Brothers lost by bringing in Sweet Baby Inc.
Nerd says, by the way, Steam sees 6,000 to 8,000 new games a year. Very good. That's a lot of games. It's a lot of.
Okay, you had 6,000 to 8,000 games. Out of that, you have 2 that you can count, that you can mention, that actually move the needle in any conceivable way in Power World and Helldivers 2.
No, those are just the examples that he brought up. I don't think that he doesn't have a number to say. He's just saying there's a lot of things there, but there's different consoles. Everyone's got their different console. I don't use Steam, so I am not exactly somebody that's up on top of what Steam is. I know what it is, but I don't know how it works and stuff. And then finally, Nerd says, it hurt me to disappoint Doc. I'm sorry, bro.
Hey, I'm just pointing out that it was a reductive argument. I think we're kind of on the same page. I'd love a world where indie comics could really, move. But that's not it. Where those become gateway comics. The only time in history that almost worked was Image in the early days, and
those were all knockoffs of Marvel characters.
They literally were. It was all, Spawn was Batman meets Spider-Man. Wildcats was
Prowler's costume.
Yeah, Wildcats was X-Men. Cyberforce was X-Force. Each of them had a Wolverine too.
Savage Dragon was Hulk.
Yeah, Yeah, all of these were.
At least he was a cop, though.
Yeah,
I think what could work here is if Doc, if you don't mind, if we had Wes explain this, but doing it by dropping sweet raps.
Yeah,
Dude, you don't want to hear my fucking raps, man. I'll put
we
you
want
in a
that
fucking
flow.
coma, son.
Don't get
That's
Wes
my
on
idea.
flow.
White
Sweet
chocolate brings
flow.
to the fucking table, yo.
I needed to start with "I am Wes, and I'm here to say." Is that how that's the best.
Every rap I do starts with
You
rubber
need
dub
to
dub,
borrow
rubber
Josh's
dub
hat.
dub. And I fucking hit it. That's how it works, yo.
Yeah, you are white
we
chocolate
will-
from now on, man. That's not going away anytime soon.
Hey, man, I'll load it. Now we do have time for one more thing because Aaron, you don't have to bounce completely early this time, right?
No, every other week I'm good.
We've got the DC Comics sales data, and this is obviously the book scan stuff is definitely it firm, but the comic book sales data is a little bit more iffy. But there were no DC Comics on the direct market that were in the top 20. We did get, I think, Superman at 21 or something like that. Batman wasn't in the top 5 because they counted it against the previous month, even though it came out on the 2nd. Then when you look at the actual like superhero graphic novel charts, they weren't even in the top 20 there either. And it looks like their sales have kind of dried up outside of Batman, Josh. This is a pattern that's been going on for a while, but it's really getting worrying at this point.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was worrying 4 years ago when they started to decline, but they didn't take it seriously then. I have no faith that they're going to take it seriously now because, again, you've got a company that's being run by a bunch of fucking retards that don't understand business. And we're sitting here talking about this whole, like, everyone's scared of the 12 people on Twitter. I'm going to bring up Harry Potter again. I brought it up last week, bringing it up this week. If there's ever anything people should look to for like, hey, maybe we should follow suit, Harry Potter. You had Twitter going nuts about Harry Potter, hating on J.K. Rowling. It's the worst thing ever. It's not going to do anything. #1 game last year, Harry Potter Legacy.
Yeah.
You got a new series coming out that looks like it's going to be like gangbusters, ball to the wall in terms of viewership if they don't fuck it up. Like, just stop listening to these retards, these psychos that are on Twitter. Just go do what you know is right for business, because you've been listening to them for roughly 10 years now, and it's clearly not working out. So go back to what worked. Just
the majority of the
just
country
sit back.
does not give 2 tugs of a dead clown's cock about social justice issues. They just want to be entertained.
T. Franklin does.
At this point, though, the people, the higher ups at these companies agree with this stuff, and that's the problem.
Yeah,
that's why you're starting to see, like, it's shareholders at Disney. Some of the shareholders at Disney probably believe in the DEI structure, whatever that is, because I said, how else does this keep happening? Because it's been happening for so long that the rot goes all the way to the top now, and that's is certainly the case at Marvel and DC.
What's bad? Yeah,
No,
sorry, dog. What's bad is a lot of these leaders don't actually believe it. They're just doing it because they don't want to put up with any form of backlash, even though the backlash doesn't matter.
Pretty much.
Sorry, Doc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. You're exactly right. That's basically what I was going to say too. And now we have to remember that we have a median level of, we're still a generally median country, fairly centrist. But that means that there's 50%, including intelligence. And that's even in business. And we have to remember both the Peter principle and the fact that means half of the people in these companies are less intelligent than the average.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. You have a lot of people in these corporations that are just not smart and legitimately believe that, well, it's not that we've done something wrong, it's that we haven't done enough of it yet. That's the problem with people that become true believers in anything. They refuse to take empirical evidence. It becomes religious to them, and they can't really reflect on it at all, because if they do, they have to. Their egos are so fragile that they can't admit that they were wrong before. It doesn't matter whether they'll be right in the future. They just can't admit they were wrong before. And as long as they can go until they hit the grave in that level of delusion and self-delusion, they're fine. Because then they never have to reflect on being wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just challenge leaders to grow a pair. How about that? Grow a pair of fucking balls. Learn to say no. Learn to ignore psychos on Twitter. If they look like they're feminine, but they have a beard and blue hair, just ignore them. If they sound like queens, ignore them.
You mean not hire them to write one of their titles?
That too, I mean, fuck.
You need more companies just saying to people, when they start their little campaigns on Twitter, saying like, well, I don't believe, number one, I don't believe you were going to buy it to begin with. And number two, if you don't like what we're doing, you don't have to buy it.
Yeah. They're perfectly fine saying that to existing customers. They're never good with it being the non-customers, because, and their shareholders, for whatever reason, don't either, because they don't believe that people will stop buying. The people that are already their customers, these companies, their shareholders, their boards, they refuse to accept the idea. They believe it wholeheartedly that the people that say they're leaving won't leave.
Yeah, they think the brands are bulletproof, is what they believe.
Yes,
but we're finding out Star Wars, with Marvel, with Doctor Who, with all these things that they thought, Star Trek. Kurtzman even said that. Like, we've already got the Star Trek fans; they'll stick around, and now we can change it to get other people. Well, You didn't get other people, and you lost your Star Trek fans. So
I heard the new Doctor Who Doctor was good.
No, you didn't.
I saw it on the Mary Sue. They said he was.
Oh, well, yeah, sure, the Mary Sue. And by the way, I saw a really stupid take tweeted from the Mary Sue, and I immediately said to myself, this is going to be a Rachel Leishman article. And I was right.
Yeah. Well, here's the problem. It is fantastic to all of the 14 people that still read the Mary Sue every week. The problem is it's not the best Doctor to anyone else, just those 14 people. And I hate to once again,
and they didn't even watch it. They're just saying this is the best one ever because reasons.
Yeah, exactly. And I hate to break it to them, but sort of like indie comics, selling your television show to an audience of 14 probably does not give it a long lifespan.
No, and this is what we always say is it's like, look, if you want to make, do we think that there should be content out there for everybody, for every demographic? Absolutely. But you have to moderate your expectations about the size of that demographic and what your return is going to be. So maybe don't take your $200-300 million movie that you've spent money on and fill it with a bunch of activist messaging that's only going to appeal to 1% of the population or less. Well, that's not a recipe for success.
Hold on.
Make something much, much smaller.
Hold on. I disagree with you. Should there be entertainment for every different particular taste? No. In fact, no. Some people need to just be said no to. There are certain people, most of which have funny colored hair, that's not done by a salon, but by like the Manic Panic bottle. Those people should not have entertainment generated for them. And I am
like Pieces of April.
Well, no. I didn't even hear what you said. I don't care. But
Piece of April. It's a movie. It's about Thanksgiving. It's got Tom Cruise's ex-wife in it. She had covered hair.
Oh, definitely no. I don't believe that should exist. But
yeah,
no,
you know what? I gotta revise my statement. I agree with Doc. I don't think that furries should have any entertainment at all.
We
My Little Pony.
We need to come back to shaming people and ostracizing them by not providing any products for them. Be like, you know what? You're just too fucking weird. We don't want you in the human race.
My goodness. Jim, you've been reading DC along with me and Marvel, and DC has more good books now.
Yeah.
What, like Superman's been good, Green Lantern's freaking good. I've got the thumbs up going here.
Yeah.
Green Arrow was good for
Batman
its time.
Off-World a bit. Yeah, you have some
Yeah.
good stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's there. It's just, I don't know. There's so many. We said it before when we talk. You have that like really good and then awful, and then Marvel. At one point, we said had a lot of mid, but they're awful now too.
They're kind of bottoming out too. Aren't they?
It's trouble. But there are books. I say it all the time when people are, there's nothing. There are good books coming out. It's just you have to really look hard now. You really have to, weed through things. But I mean,
as somebody that does all the reviews, and you've got podcasts, you've got a YouTube channel, you hit everything. Can you pinpoint what the disconnect between DC and the readers is right now? Did they do something to specifically turn everybody off?
I just think that they've hired a lot of bad writers. I mean, like you said, there's some good books there. They don't treat like good people like Jeremy Adams. They should be doing more than that. But who are you going to push as the thing? We already talked about the idea that Mark Waid now is the guy. He's divisive. You have what was their big writer was Joshua Williamson, and he's kind of just, nobody's going to get excited about, oh my God, Joshua. People like him. They might like certain things, but he's not that guy who you're going to be like, oh my God, I hear he's doing something. I'm going to run and get it. And then they have people like a Tim Sheridan who's fighting with people, and then other books like Fire and Ice, they end up, and even like the recent Speed Force, they're just garbage. And I think that's the big thing. And like I said, you ended up pushing people away with certain things, but when it comes down to it, when the hardcore fans can't even stand some of the people, just bail. And Batman with Chip Zdarsky right now probably is one of the big problems when we're talking about a gateway book. And when that's not doing good, DC's screwed, and you see it.
Yep.
It's just trouble. I mean, that Batman has to be the big. And Josh will know too. Like at one point, they were so protective of who wrote Batman that you had to sign exclusive to write Batman. You couldn't be writing for it. And they're so desperate now with the lack of writers and things like that you see it in that they're just, okay, Chip, you come in, because then you have Chip Zdarsky doing some Marvel stuff, and it does kind of like water everything down. It doesn't seem like that big thing anymore, but it's I think
Avengers Twilight's better.
Yeah, and that's the problem. You can't have your Batman writer
book.
doing other things and whatnot. They need to get right now the Montreal screw job on these assholes, and end up getting some people out if they're going to switch teams, and so all that stuff. I think that Batman has to get better. They have to do something after this absolute power. I'm expecting to get a status quo.
No, Justice
change,
League is a problem.
Reboot. Yeah, and that's a problem too. And them not, like, even now, like the idea where they have no Justice League, but yet they kind of get together for things. It doesn't feel like it really has any oomph or weight to it. And then the Titans are the Justice League, and then they're the Justice League. The Titans are going and making sure bulldozers don't hit over a tree. I mean, that's fine, but that's not the Justice League.
No,
just
that's Tiny Titans.
Even the idea where when you have the overall, if you think of the scope of things and people getting sick of Amanda Waller and stuff like that, but the real big event coming up is really saying superheroes suck. And we want to bring them down. And even that kind of, might be not turn people off, but it's still part of that whole MO that we have going on.
Yeah. But guys,
Josh, you were at BatmanNews.com and you ended up getting fed up with it, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, like
it's worse now.
It's worse now. Look, it started getting to a point where I stopped reading books when I was getting them for free because that's how bad the books were getting.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's worse now. I noped out with Batman at Gotham War. I like, as frustrated as Tynan's run made me at times, Chip Zdarsky's run showed promise at first, and then just really started going downhill. But the moment we got to Gotham War, I was like, I'm so done with this bullshit. I'm so tired of paying for this crap, because I was paying for it by this point. I'm like, I'm not doing it anymore. And even if I were still getting it for free, I wouldn't be doing it. To give people a shot, I will pick up number ones when they get released, and I'll read it to see if I think there's potential there. And I come back to a lot of indies. I think right now I've got maybe 3-4 Marvel and DC books total that I'll pick up just to kind of see after number one. But it's just trash.
That's the big
But
problem,
hey,
isn't it?
we can all feel safe in knowing that DC is about to get saved because Leah Williams is doing what is it? Gotham City Sirens.
Yeah,
1 month, 4 issues.
Speaking of that, just think of this: the idea of where anybody thinks Gotham is on a map, and Leah Williams thinks that if you go to what she says is the county line of Gotham, you're in the West. You're actually having probably monkeys on freaking sheepdogs jumping around and stuff. But it's a Western themed story saying just outside of Gotham. The hell? Like
Gotham is definitely East Coast. There's no.
I said it's like you go and it's like on the border. You're in like Scranton. You know, you're in the middle of shit, Pennsylvania, York, PA. Like nonsense. They're all west. Stupid.
You don't like York peppermint patties?
No, I don't mind those. I just don't like York, PA. It's a cesspool. Take that. That's just me. Or Harrisburg. Take all that. Anything middle to the west of Pennsylvania is nonsense, is what I say.
It's the shit country, huh?
Yes, it is.
Don't worry, Jim. Kneel Before Doomface is set in a western city.
Damn right.
The city of San Francisco.
See, that makes sense. Right, there you go. Just don't
It's
get
a
Lee Williams there. It should be. That's awesome.
All right, let's hear from the people. Steve Notko says, I can see it now, the June DC Marvel Pride crossover, 2 Drakes, 1 Cup. Seriously, though, always love the show. Keep up all the great streams, guys.
There's definitely a story there.
2 Drakes, 1 Cup is intriguing.
That leads to the following years.
All right. Yeah, he's going
to
you know what,
which Drake dies of dysentery.
Wes, you don't want to drop any fat rhymes about this book?
No.
And then the follow-up, which is he has brainworms.
Rub-a-dub-dub. Rub-a-dub-tub. 2 Drakes,
Rub-a-dub.
Your mom's in my tub.
Look, I know Wes is saying there's a story there. If you ask me, it sounds pretty shitty. So
absolutely.
Rim shot. Hold on. I need to start actually doing this show from behind my drum kit.
That'd be
so
awesome.
I can actually do a rim shot whenever.
And I'll do a human.
When you said rim shot, I thought you were going somewhere else with that.
I did too.
Yeah, and
I thought we were back on T. Franklin pitch meetings.
I thought Rimshot was a villain, and I was like, "Oh God, here we go."
Well, now we've gone 2 different ways.
Oh my goodness! It's not about the money anymore. Check out the Bridge Initiative 2.0. It's absolutely terrifying. Sales data isn't favorable, so now they're forcing acceptance.
I have to look into that.
What is the Bridge Initiative? What is that? A video game? Is it a video game? Is it a? Is it
if only there were a device. If only there was some device that I had here.
Does no one have Google?
I'm looking it up right now. Continue on.
Is the Bridge Initiative 2.0 like as a story terrifying, or is the sales data terrifying?
I thought Bridge Initiative was one of your hip hop albums, Wes.
It was.
Yeah, well, that one was more underground. It wasn't really a studio piece.
It was one of your more experimental works.
Exactly.
That led to that Northwest, rap fight.
When I was in Alaska, I was really throwing down my dirty rhymes. Kalichi, okay, I feel like DC fans tend not to tolerate bad shit for long. We know what we like and we'll show up and buy it if we like it. Current DS is putting out trash. Maybe that's right. Maybe that's what the big difference is, Breen, is that DC fans don't stick around like maybe a Marvel fan. Like Amazing Spider-Man blows right now.
Yeah.
It's worse than Batman, really. But DC fans are more likely to give it up than maybe a Marvel fan will on ASM.
Well, that's what I said before about all Marvel has to do sometimes is spell their name right, and sometimes not even that. But and the problem with DC fans not tolerating bad shit for long is they tend to go away, which I got to agree with. And I look at, you take a writer like Jeremy Adams, great take on the Flash. They take him off the book, and now Flash is in the toilet. He's writing Green Lantern, but Green Lantern doesn't chart because a lot of people. Those are the kind of books that would have appealed to the people that the industry's chased away, and probably more so at DC than Marvel because it stands to reason. Marvel always outsold DC, so Marvel's probably chased away the same amount of readers that DC has. It was just there was more of them there to begin with, and there's still more. And now, like I said, DC didn't have that margin to lose, so even they can't get any traction with some of their, legitimate good books.
Yeah. I think that them interrupting Dawn of DC damaged them way more than it's being talked about. Yeah. Like the fact that you had
retailers,
so many...
I've read like wrap-ups, and every single one of them was like, that was a terrible idea.
Yeah. You started, I mean, they didn't call it a relaunch, but it was definitely a soft boot and try to get a redirection going. And it's like maybe 1 to 3 issues in of these books, you break it up for what, a 2 to 3 month event?
And you even said that's one of the things with Batman too, but it became so disjointed with all the crazy stuff happening with that. Then the Gotham War, then the Joker Year One. Like you haven't even been double, but that break, that Night Terrors deal was just completely off.
Yeah. So, Aaron, it appears that Bridge Initiative 2.0 is some type of DEI think tank.
Yeah, I just looked it up here. It's Bridge has become a social movement of organizations dedicated to using evidence to advance DEI goals with their organizations and at the sectoral level.
Well, it does sound terrifying.
Yeah, it's a whole bunch of Marxist bullshit.
All right, well, let's not talk about that too much. I don't want to end this on a bad note.
That's all we need to know. Everybody knows what we're talking about.
Comic book recommendations. Let's talk about the stuff that we enjoyed this week. And I'm going to throw it down to my good friend Eric Breen, the Grizzly Man himself, no longer the voice of the voiceless. Best beard on Thinking Critical, and I'm envious, sir.
If I'm only allowed to use this week, I guess
you can pick any book that you want.
Okay, I'm going to just say that. Well, first I would say get well soon to Dr. Silver Age. Who's a bit under the weather. He's a good friend of mine, fellow Fossil. But as far as like recommendations, I wasn't recommend like Flash Gordon, Dick Tracy, Space Ghost. Kind of liking that some of these new takes on these.
Has Flash Gordon come out yet?
Well, the free comic book day.
Yeah. Oh, okay, because I haven't. I know that's Jeremy Adams. He's one of my favorite.
Yes, Jeremy Adams.
Is it good?
Well, I liked it, but I'm also I've read Flash Gordon before, but I'm not a Flash Gordon aficionado. I do know that they changed Ming's look. He's now some kind of almost like a lizard person type.
Ming's been green before.
Okay, but he doesn't really look human either. But anyway, be that as it may, I like seeing it's like 5 years ago we got a take on the Shadow that was it was an SJW take. We had, Judge Dredd advocating illegal immigration.
Yes, that was weird.
Yeah. So, but now it seems like the classic characters that are being revised are being revised with, reverence to when they were good, and I look at that as a good sign and help. I saw where Space Ghost was number 13 in April. That's not bad. That outsold every DC book.
How many covers? It's dynamite. How many covers does it have?
There's only a handful, but there was one that looked like it right out of the 60s, which is what made me want the book. But
I thought Space Ghost was fine. I thought it was pretty decent.
Yeah, I'm not a big Space Ghost reader in the past, but then there's not been all that much to read. But I did find the first appearance recently, which is kind of cool. But
very nice. So you're recommending Dick Tracy, Space Ghost, and Flash Gordon, which hasn't come out yet, but based on the free comic book day?
Yes.
Very nice. And where can people find you if they want to see you around, besides Thinking Critical?
Right now, Geeky Puppet Show readings on Fridays and Sundays. And I'm helping E do the auctions on Saturday nights again. So basically that, and then during the week, we have a best of the week on Thursday nights on the Geeky Puppet Show where we do the couple of them do a top 5, and then 2 days later they do Did They Live Up to It, and I help out with that.
Very nice. So you're on the Geeky Puppet Show and I Love Comics.
Yes.
Very good, and really appreciate having you back on. I love to have Eric
Appreciate you having
Breen
me.
with us. We've also, what's up?
So I appreciate you having me back.
Oh yeah, well, awesome. We've also got Aaron Sparrow, and I sent you a couple of comic books that I know are really, really good, and they're reader copies. So I know you've got at least 2 books to recommend this week.
Well, I did pick up Energon Universe in its physical form on Free Comic Book Day, so I did pick that up. That was very good. That gives us the backstory of Megatron, which we've been kind of needing in the Energon universe. So that was highly enjoyable. Transformers 8, while still being good and having great art, focuses on Carly, and so it is not as good because I hate that character. I hate the way she's written in here, and it kind of seems like she's reverted back to. She kind of had an arc before, and she's a real bitch to Cliff Jumper, and I'm tired of it. So I did not.
Do you
enjoy
hate
that
her
one
as much as I hate Beth Dutton?
Maybe.
That
we
might
have
be
to
my
discuss
most
your
hated character
sheer hatred.
in the history of television. He's awful.
So yeah,
He's
those
supposed
are.
to be a good guy.
But both of those are worth picking up. I'm going to echo what Breen said. I liked Dick Tracy, and I liked the preview of Flash Gordon. So if you guys shop still have those, get out there and get those Free Comic Day copies, and check them out when they come out in regular form.
So you went to Free Comic Book Day. Was it popping? Was it hot?
No, it was kind of
wasn't
quiet.
popping?
No,
Well, that
sadly.
sucks.
Yeah, it was
And,
nothing was. I got there late. Nothing was gone. It just seemed kind of real low key.
Well, that was bad news. I thought you were going to hit us with it was popping.
I wish that it was. I wish that
Yeah.
comics were popping, but right now, there's just a bunch of stuff going on. The readership's changed, Wes. We just don't know what to do.
It just died off. Yeah.
We're all
So
dead.
on Monday, you were on which YouTube channel?
Verbal Riot Live.
Verbal Riot Live. Are you got anything planned for this week that people should be looking out for?
Just my normal appearances on Max's Man Cave. If Max does a show this Sunday, and then with Josh on Tuesday, Pop by Culture. Be doing those, and then we'll see what else comes along.
Very, very nice. Josh, with us this week, did you read any new comic books worth recommending?
Yeah, so the only thing I've read from this week is Sacrificers, and I will say definitely go pick it up. It's still consistently
Yes.
good, and I'll echo Dick Tracy, which I think came out last week, but it's good. And if you missed out on Drawing Blood, I'd recommend picking it up. It's got some potential, and that's a Kevin Eastman book. So
I
those are my
also
3
like this week's
recommendations.
Sacrifices. There's a moment in there at the end that you were not expecting.
No, and it will, no.
You didn't want to spoil it, but the
I
pigeon.
don't want to spoil it either. I know, little bird guy.
It's a big pigeon issue.
Yeah.
Yes, it was
Oh,
very,
man.
very cool. And you've got Popeye Culture. You got anything else that people should be looking out for this week?
Yeah, I mean, we're waiting to hear back from Max if we're going to do Sunday night Max's Man Cave. Monday, we're dropping our second episode of Marvelous Monday on Popeye Culture, and then Tuesday night we'll have Culture Popped. So come
Very
hang out
nice.
with us.
Nerd says, I'm recommending Dino King #1 from Liam Gray, also endorsed by EVS, claiming it's better than his, Mike Barron's, Shane Davis's, and John Malin's current books. Well, that
I would
is,
agree with that
high
assessment.
praise indeed. So
Well,
you were a big fan of Dino King?
It looks gorgeous. I haven't read it, but I've seen the art, and it looks fantastic.
Well, very nice.
I was just going to make a joke about Ethan having a current book.
You guys are so funny. Jim, are you recommending comic books? I know you read a lot of them.
Yeah, I have a couple. I have Kneel Before Zod, #5 from DC. I'll make people laugh and say The Amazing Spider-Man 49 and Avengers 14. And also...
You are all in on Blood Hunt.
Yeah, all in. Geiger, #2, Transformers, #8, and Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, #6, which finishes that series, which is really good. People should check it out.
Very
I hear
nice.
Rock
So,
and Robbie
Jim,
really liked that one.
Yeah, it's really good. It is really good. It's messed up, but really good.
So, Jim, apparently I have upset you in the past when I have not asked you to like pimp your wares. Is there anything Jim's doing recently that people need to know about, whether it be podcast reviews or YouTube?
That just
Nothing.
the same old stuff reviews. I have a best of coming up today. When we're done, I'm going to edit that, and just the normal stuff. I end up having a show every Sunday that I look forward to. What I hope are good comics this coming week and that stuff. So check it out.
Have you reprimanded Gabe yet for all of his sus opinions?
I look at it. He gives me a headache. No, I haven't. He that's Gabe. Gabe needs to be sus. It keeps us all in line. So
he's like a bird. He's got to be free. You can't.
Yeah,
cage.
That is true. You can't cage. You can't put sus Gabe in a corner. You just
Definitely
can't.
not.
Nobody
Speaking of
puts
sus
Gabe in a
opinions,
corner.
speaking of sus opinions, I'm expecting to be in a Twitter fight with Fatal J today.
What do you have a different sandwich recipe or something?
No,
burrito?
he's talking about the Snyderverse again, and he's saying that if you didn't go see Black Adam, then you're the reason that Henry Cavill's not Superman anymore.
He's not wrong though.
It's true.
Still, I shouldn't have to go see a shit Dwayne Johnson movie.
I'm just saying.
Man, don't be using his fucking name like that. You call him The Rock. Because we all know who he is, the most exciting man in entertainment.
He's the Rock when he's in the ring. When he's in a movie, he's Dwayne.
Nah, he's still the Rock. He's still got
when he's out there shilling for Oprah's scam charity, he's Dwayne.
In fairness, when he was in the Fast and Furious movies, he was the Rock.
He had to pay for that too. He had to pay. Vince McMahon got a cut of his contract anytime he was called the Rock. Although now he has it back in perpetuity, I think, because of his landmark deal with whatever company he owns.
TKO.
Yeah, thank you.
He doesn't own it. He's a board member.
He's a board member.
No, I didn't say he owned it. I said whichever company owns WWE, and then Doc jumped in.
Yeah.
I'm calling you Rock now, Doc. You're the new Rock.
I am.
All right, Doc. You recommending books?
I am not recommending anything published this millennia. Instead, actually, you know what? No, this was published in this millennia. This is. If you are a big fan, Sleeper.
Oh.
If you are a fan of Brubaker and Phillips together, this was one of the first projects they did together. It was for Wildstorm. And there was 2 quote unquote seasons. So 24 issues total. It's like a sleeper agent superhero thing but it's much more Black Ops than capes and tights. It was really, really good. And I actually believe that Ed might actually have the rights to Sleeper rather than DC. But I might be wrong. So Sleeper, this is issue 1. There was a prelude miniseries called Point Blank that's also really good, but this is just about Holden Carver being basically left out in the cold because his handler got shot at the end of Point Blank. So nobody knows that he's actually undercover except for himself. And it's a question of whether or not he's going to stay like the good guy or if he's going to go bad because he doesn't have any other options. Then we got, this is Claremont's first return back to X-Men. This is X-Men number 100. What?
Somebody got a prank call.
This is X-Men 100, but this is the Dynamic Forces gold foil variant, which these things are weirdly hard to find. This is when they introduced the Neo as the new threat to the X-Men and mutants in general. Claremont tried to do something with it for a little while, but it never kind of went anywhere. But it was still a cool book, and you had Lionel Francis Yu and Chris Claremont on the book. Then we're going to go with Stormwatch number 4, volume 2, the first appearance of Apollo and the Midnighter. So, and they get a cover appearance too. love these characters, and 11, 12, or 7, 8 issues later, it becomes the Authority. So this book is hard to find in grade. And then finally, we'll go with something very old.
Anus, huh?
Anus, yeah, Anus
the untouchable,
the untouchable Anus. So T. Franklin's butthole. And yeah, so this is X-Men number 8, I believe, and first appearance of Eunice, the Untouchable Man. Who they tried to make a thing for a little while, but never really. He was never really a great. But I just thought that this cover was really cool. It's so kind of cheesy and so very, very cheesy Silver Age, with the whole team just like flying out of the way because they can't touch Eunice. It's and you know what? It's a really nice condition copy too. So X-Men number 8 from 1964, I think. So that is my recommendations for the week.
Well, very good. Hopefully everybody has a good new comic book week. I'll be talking about all my recommendations with Drew later on. I do apologize. Last week we planned on doing a best of the week. I had a birthday party that we were executing the next day. I fell behind and we weren't able to record it, but we will be back this week and having some fun on that. And I want to say thank you very much to everybody, especially the Grizzly Man, Eric Breen. White Chocolate is out. I'm dropping the mic, and wait another week for these dope rhymes.